Good afternoon. Good afternoon. I'll call the meeting to order for the July 23rd study session, Newport Beach City Council. Madam Clerk.
The record will reflect that all members of council are present.
Okay, we'll proceed into current business. The first item is clarification of items on the consent calendar. Any questions on the consent calendar by members of the council? Mr. Avery? Mr. Duffield? Mr. Muldoon? Ms. Brenner?
I have a question about, I think it's item 6, our construction ordinance, that I would just like the question answered at some point.
Do you want to do it now? Go ahead.
My question is, we've allowed homeowner associations to opt out. Are we also allowing them to opt in? And Simone, you got the letter from the Corona Del Mar Residents Association, and I don't feel like that's adequate to get the people that are within my district who are in homeowners associations that's not enough of a survey. So I was wondering if we could send a letter to the homeowners association asking them if they would like to be part of this ordinance, the signage, the Saturdays, that's up to, but especially the signage.
Certainly, to answer the first question is we don't have a methodology, a process for an opt-in. Mm-hmm. We have an item for this evening, item number 3 for an opt-out. So we could definitely set up a process of some sort. But the only way to opt in would be to change the ordinance, and that's how we envision that occurring. We could definitely reach out to all the HOAs in the Corona Del Mar area and see if they want to follow a process and maybe go to their board and talk to their board and try to get actually a vote done. And for them to actually opt in. We would take that letter or that opt-in, if they do approve it, and come back to the city council with a new ordinance and say, this HOA would like to opt into that program that we have, that high-density program.
I'd like to see us do that with our homeowners association, certainly in my district anyway.
Certainly.
But aren't they already included?
No, just the high-density areas are included.
Oh,
right,
so
not all Corona Del Mar is included.
Oh, I didn't understand that point. Okay, I get that. Okay, well, thank you for your question. Mr. Herdman?
None.
And Mayor Pro Tem?
Yep. Actually, I had a couple of questions on that same item. So at my office hours, I got to spend some time with some folks, and one of them was Jim, and then some of them were actually also residents in the Newport Shores HOA. And one of the things that came up when we were talking is it's a little unclear if the Newport Shores HOA would actually meet the qualifications of the HOA standards that we have now, because it sounds like it's more of an opt-in approach, and I'm not exactly clear on. I'm realizing we have a lot of different versions of HOAs inside our city, and I'm kind of curious if when we're going down this path, we're going to find that if people want to opt out, there are groups, associations, and whatnot that want to opt out, that it turns out they're technically an HOA, but they aren't exactly what you'd call the traditional HOA that you'd find up in Newport Coast. You'd have more of an opt-in with a pool, or for example, Jim's example was a good one, which is private road. Private road has actually, interestingly enough, has a council policy dedicated to it because it has a little park in the middle of it, and we've got a lot of hybrids in the city, and so when we're trying to work through the opt-out, and I guess real quick to Councilmember Brenner's point, HOAs can do this themselves, so that's
what they were mentioning to me is that they do have their own signage they put up, but the city has a little more clout, and so maybe they have more clout, I'm not sure of that, but they felt like having the city ordinance maybe on their signage would give it more meat.
That's interesting. Okay. So then the other, but I guess the challenge is I'm trying to figure out how this one works, and Jim's comments actually are well taken when he's mentioning let's see, on page 2 of his comments about the Newport Shores Board, trying to figure out what their powers are and whether they would actually fit into this. And given the fact that the Newport Shores Board is kind of the driving force behind the opt-out rules, if they're not qualifying under this particular ordinance, that seems challenging. for where we're going with this. So I'm kind of I'm curious, does the Newport Shores Board actually meet the qualifications of HOA under this standard?
So that's your,
Well, it's my question then. I guess the other question is, the other approach is to simply carve things out of maps, carve things out of the map instead of having an opt-out or an opt-in approach.
we discussed this when maybe you pull it and we discuss it.
We can do that. If this is too long for clarification, I was kind of hoping not to pull.
Well, does this satisfy, Mr. Georges, do you want to respond?
So, certainly, we didn't use the definition, a standard definition from the Department of Real Estate. What we've done is kind of created a broad definition, and it really just focuses on 30 voting members that are properties of contiguous manner. So we have a very broad definition of what an HOA is. We didn't go to the state level. We didn't talk to the Department of Real Estate. We just developed a very broad definition, 30 voting members with contiguous properties, and we just kept it simple. Again, the opt-in or opt-out is under the City Council's discretion. If an HOA wants to make the case, they absolutely can. We've provided some type of tools to say they want to opt out, and it's going to be up to the City Council whether to make that final decision of whether it should be opted out or not, and whether it's a legitimate HOA that can make that request.
Okay. I'll tell you what. Let's find out if Newport Shores would actually qualify under this ordinance as drafted in between now and when the council meeting starts, if that's possible.
Sure.
All right, thanks.
Okay, you had no other items?
Nope.
Okay, and I have none. Let's go to the second item, to recognize, this is always a fun part of our meetings, to recognize accomplishment by young people. The U.S. Rowing Youth National Championship gold medalists are none other than our Newport Aquatic Center's men's lightweight 8+. So I am going to call up a representative of the organization. Are they here? The men's rowing team, Mr. Banta, Egan, Kenny, McCarthy, McDonald, Rolfs, Smith, Taylor, and Boyle. Please come forward. Please come forward in front of the lectern there, please, and I will read our proclamation. If you want to turn around and look at us while I read the proclamation. Whereas all boys on the Newport varsity rowing team train 9 months of the year to compete for positions in the top boats. They practice for 3 hours, 5 to 7 days a week, rain or shine. And by late April, the seats for the youth men's lightweight 8 boat began to take shape. 4 seats occupied by returning rowers from the previous year's LWT boat, and 4 seats were available for the top rowers, most willing to work for these seats. And whereas in the beginning of May, with the team's top 8 lightweight rowers in place, this boat competed at the USRowing Southwest Regionals, where they won the gold medal and qualified to represent at a national level. And whereas the Newport men's rowing lightweight 8 traveled to Sarasota, Florida to compete at the U.S. Rowing Youth National Championship the first week of June 2019 and placed first in the time trials and first in the semifinals. And on June 9th, Messrs. Jackson Banta, Egan, Kenny, McCarthy, McDonald, Rolfs, Smith, Taylor, and Coxswain. Is that how you say that? Coxon. Kevin Boyle competed. How did I say it, Mr. Duffy? Coxon. Coxon. Kevin Boyle competed in the Nationals Grand Final A and not only won the U.S. Rowing Youth Men's LWT 8 national title, gold medal, but set the course record for the fastest time ever recorded for this event, making this boat the best in the nation and undefeated for the season. And none of this could have happened without mutual love, respect, and commitment between athletes and their coach. The standard of excellence commanded by Coach Nick D'Antoni is the reason these 9 young men rose to the occasion and won the national championship. And whereas the city of Newport Beach is grateful to these coaches and young men for their hard work and excellence in the sport of competitive rowing, and whereas, therefore, I, Diane Brooks Dixon, Mayor of the City of Newport Beach, on behalf of the entire Newport Beach City Council, do hereby recognize Newport's varsity men's lightweight 8 boat for winning the gold medal national championship title at the U.S. Rowing Association's Youth Nationals in Sarasota, Florida. Congratulations, young men. That's fantastic. We are so proud of your accomplishment and your hard work. Is there anyone, the coach, would you like to speak on their behalf?
I haven't prepared any comments, but I think just to attest to the group, there are people that have worked for that moment for 5 years, and when you're 18 years old, 5 years is a life, and to see them, that was really, doing the fastest time ever was, historical. So that it's always nice to leave a little mark. Congratulations again, guys.
Congratulations. May I just ask, when you're there rowing or practicing, what do we say, 3 hours, 5 to 7, are they out there at 5 in the morning, 5:30 in the bay? Because I see a lot of...
We're usually out in the afternoons.
Oh, in the evening, because whoever's out there in the morning, I see them in the morning. I was going to say, they work hard. You all work very hard.
They dedicate their summers to the mornings. It's really a day off for them.
Mr. Muldoon, you wanted to say something?
Thank you. Yeah, I was a rower in college. I was only one regatta, so I actually was officially a varsity rower, but really I was a novice rower. And if you think lacrosse is an East Coast sport, they've got nothing on crew. So the fact that you gentlemen went and competed against schools in New England where generational rowers row and won this national title is such an amazing accomplishment. And I expect some of you are going to go up to UW and erg in the rain. Other of you are going to go maybe to Harvard and somewhere else really prestigious with this great resume builder you've got. I wish you all the best. Avoid the crabs and have some fun.
All right, I'll come down and present your proclamation, and we'll take a photograph.
And any other council members that want to come in the picture, feel free. We want them all.
Guys, over here.
Joy, come on down and join us. Go ahead.
Thank you.
Will, nothing from in? Jeff, come on. You're photogenic. Hop in.
Hey, one more on the other side.
A little closer. Yeah, everybody look at me. I'm the most important. 3, 2, 1. Fantastic.
Really appreciate it.
That's the budget.
That's always fun. What a great accomplishment. They're on their way. All right, now we're going to have from staff an overview of the state-mandated organic waste recycling requirements and the possible new Newport Beach Municipal Code changes that are coming our way. Mr. Webb and team.
Thank you. The team's here. Thank you, Mayor, council members. Wanted to take some time today on our study session to talk about some changes we've been having in legislation from the state and how we handle and address our waste streams. So tonight we have Micah Martin here tonight, our Deputy Director, and also Trevor Blythe, who's our consultant with economics that helps us in the refuge category. They're going to give you a presentation and go over some of the changes you can expect and how we're looking to address it.
Good evening, Mayor, members of council, and staff. I'd like to just give you the quick presentation here. As Dave mentioned, I'll be taking us through the presentation. I've got Trevor here as our subject matter expert, so if we have some questions that have some technical caliber to them, I'll be referring to him for support as well. So just to go into a quick overview of what we'll be covering in this presentation, we're going to go over the calorie cycle and what their mandates are and what's brought about some of the needs for some of these changes, the compliance requirements for these changes, that these have brought about a revised ordinance and a franchise amendment. So we're going to talk a little bit about the revisions to those. And then we're going to touch just briefly on future legislation and just a quick preview of some of the other stuff that'll be coming down the line in future years. So just quickly, who is CalRecycle? They're the California's Department of Resources, Recycling, and Recovery. They're the administrators, and they provide oversight for all the California state-managed non-hazardous waste handling and recycling programs. So this group monitors and works with local jurisdictions for compliance with solid waste legislation, and local jurisdictions are referred to the Jurisdictional Compliance Unit for non-compliance. So these are the ones who set the rules, set the standards for all the legislature, and we report to them on a regular basis on how we're doing with meeting those mandates. So this is the organization who helps with that. So this is just a quick snapshot of the different legislation that is currently in place or about to become in place. So AB 939 is already passed. That's something we've been working on. AB 341 is currently the state goal that we've been working towards as well, and that's diversion of all recycling material. AB 1826 is the one. This is the one that's really prompted a lot of our changes in our municipal code and our franchise amendments. So this is more along the lines of organics recycling, and then there's some future legislation there with regards to alternative daily cover, and eventually increased requirements for organics disposal and food waste. So
let me just interject, just so for the folks listening at home, just understand, this is what we're going to be talking about. What's happening as mandated by the state is everybody's been recycling for years, and now it's going into organic recycling, which is something that we haven't been doing. So this is about food and waste, and everything that is produced inside the home or business ultimately will be mandated to be recycled. So it's a time frame here that we're going against here over the next several years.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. That is correct. And just to clarify a little bit about organics and what organics is. Organics recycling is considered food waste, or what's considered the wet material that goes into the waste stream. The goal and objective of this is to clean up the waste stream so there's more recoverable material, and take that organic material and divert it to another source as a recycling material that could be used for compost or other things like that. And we could talk more about that later, but that just kind of gives a little bit more definition or insight into what organics recycling consists of. Okay, so just a quick overview of some of the proposed revisions we're going to make to the ordinance here to bring us into compliance with these mandates. In January, we started a city council working group that consists of some of our council members and other members of staff to discuss how we're going to make these changes. We've developed a draft ordinance that will require businesses to recycle and comply with CalRecycle's requirements. Now, this ordinance revision will also require conforming amendments to the city's non-exclusive commercial franchise agreements. So that's how our franchise comes into play and is also in need of some revisions as well. So we developed a draft franchise amendment to go into addition to that. And then these items will be reviewed by the working group and brought to council in September for first reading. So just a little further on the proposed ordinance revisions, we've developed this draft ordinance that will meet the requirements of AB 341 and 1826. So you remember on that timeline there, those are the two that are due either this year or next. So we've got to make these changes to this ordinance to help us meet the compliance efforts of that. So effective January 1st, 2020, if approved by council, the ordinance will require all businesses and multifamily properties covered by AB 341 and 1826 to recycle. The ordinance establishes requirements for businesses required by statute to ensure quality programs and city compliance. So this is to ensure that a program is implemented and is followed, and that it meets their compliance requirements for the city and CalRecycle. Some other changes to the proposed ordinance revision here is the
Excuse
city-
me,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem, you want to ask a
Yeah,
question?
so, since this is going to come back, it probably makes sense to just have a couple of quick background items as well for our fellow council members. So the working group that he's referencing is the mayor, Councilmember Brenner, and me. And so a lot of this came about because CalRecycle sent a letter back on March 21st, 2017, outlining what they considered to be deficiencies with the city's compliance with some of the state codes. And so at the time, the city's response was, and specific, by the way, to commercial haulers, not to residential. The city had promised three things: get information from the haulers. So, how many haulers commercial haulers do we have on the franchise side, both the top tier and the lower tier?
So Tier 1 haulers, we have 5.
Yep.
And then including Tier 2, we've got
38, I think.
38.
Okay, so part of the requirement was to get information from the haulers on what on their compliance, send letters to non-participating businesses. So the businesses within our city that they didn't have an organics recycling program, and then require businesses to get a program in place via ordinance. And part of the problem that we found out from our haulers was there were a lot of businesses not complying because there was nothing requiring them to do so. And so we didn't have any ordinance. We currently don't have an ordinance in place that requires our commercial businesses to have an organic waste diversion program. And so the problem was that by refusing, they were actually putting the haulers themselves into non-compliance with the franchise agreements. And we need part of the process now is we need to get an ordinance in place, and then we also need to have a franchise agreement that has more teeth in it, and which is what we're covering right now. So wanted to make sure we had provided proper background, a little bit more background. This is great background, a little bit more background, because I'm realizing as we're going through this that it's important in the context that CalRecycle would consider us to be out of compliance if we don't follow through on this, and out of compliance is a very costly problem to have. So that's the issue as we're moving down this, is that it's not just the laws, it's the regulatory bodies that are coming and paying attention on this one. So anyway, I wanted to make sure that I talked about that as well.
That's very good, and thank you. Would you, as long as we're on this slide, could you just clarify all businesses and multifamily, what that coverage means?
Good evening, Mayor and members of council. 341, AB 341 would require any business that generates 4 or more cubic yards of waste per week to make arrangements to recycle. So that's like your average trash dumpster. If it gets picked up more than 2 times per week, that business would be required to make arrangements to recycle. Multifamily units with 5 or more housing units would also be on the hook for this law. And for AB 1826, which requires commercial businesses to recycle their food waste, the law currently requires businesses that generate 4 or more yards of trash per week, similar to what AB 341 requires. So we'll in future slides, we'll provide an update on how many businesses will actually be impacted by this that aren't in compliance now that will need to be. But it's around 175 or so currently that are out of compliance.
Sorry, one last.
Sure, go ahead.
Piggybacking on that, could you talk a little bit about outreach? Talking to the chambers of commerce, talking to the business improvement districts, talking to all this stuff. I know you all have done a lot to try to get, especially our restaurants, involved in the process. So would you mind just talking about that, so no one is accusing us of blindsiding them with any of this information?
Yeah, so city staff, in conjunction with economics here, our consultant, has been working directly with businesses who have been found to be non-compliant, and just kind of, bringing them up to speed on what the requirements are, the obligation they have to work with the hauler to be in compliance. Some of the struggles or challenges we run into is that we don't have a lot to be able to enforce upon them to bring them into compliance. Right now, we're just asking, the way our municipal code is written right now is we could ask them to be in compliance, but there's nothing we have that can make them be in compliance. So if they choose to not want to comply and they don't want to work with their hauler, then it puts us in an odd situation, and it makes things difficult for us. But we are reaching out to work with those who can and are willing to, and we've actually just put out a contract to work with a PR firm to do all the public outreach and to take it further with all the bids and all the other organizations throughout the city who we could really get ahead of this and get the word out to.
All right, please proceed. Thank you.
Okay, so on the next slide here, so with this ordinance revision, just like we were talking about, the city may enforce against businesses for noncompliance. Businesses may use self-haul or internal recycling programs to comply. So that is an option that they have that they could opt to, provided that those still remain in compliance. And then it would require waivers for low organics generation levels and space constraints. So those are some things that are taken in consideration as a potential challenge to meet the compliance. So that waiver option is there, but it is always investigated and verified by city staff and CalRecycle to make sure it complies. Okay, then lastly here on the proposed ordinance revision, so again, compliance impacts. So AB 341, which is the mandatory recycling, our current compliance rate is roughly around 90%. Approximately 25 businesses and multifamily complexes in the city do not have recycling programs in place. So this is standard recycling program. This isn't organics. This is your standard, bottles and cans, plastic, cardboard, that type of recycling under 341. We still have 25 businesses that are unable to be in compliance with that. So this municipal code change will help us be able to wrap that up and get us into the compliance rate that we know we could accomplish and get those 25 businesses where they need to be. So AB 1826, which is the mandatory organics recycling, current compliance rate is around 40%. And we have approximately 150 food service establishments that do not have food scrap recycling programs in place to date.
Is this where the state was critical of us?
Yes,
both these areas?
the state was critical with us primarily on the 341 requirement because that's been in place for a while now. And then they are starting to become critical with us on 1826 because that's currently something that's being looked at now as well. So,
Oh, Mr. Avery.
So what are the barriers for these businesses to compliance?
I'm sorry, what was the question?
What are the barriers of the businesses to compliance? Is it an onerous bar to cross to get into compliance for them, or is it just there's not enough public awareness for them to pick it up, or
It's
all over the map, huh?
It's kind of all over the map. It's a combination of things. Some of them it's challenging to add this new process into their workflow of what they do.
Right.
Some of them are restaurants that have to make place for this new system and change the way they operate essentially. And some of it's space issues. Some of them don't have the room for it or just don't want to deal with it. A lot of it is awareness. They're not even aware that this is a requirement. So we're really working hard to kind of help close those gaps and work with them on those issues.
So for a small restaurant, what's involved with changing over? Is it just extra cans and separation is primarily what we're talking about?
Yeah, ideally you would want to separate the material at the source where it's being generated.
In the kitchen?
Yeah, so in the kitchen, in the food prep area, or they're bussing the tables, that material could go directly into a bin that could then be taken out to be picked up for collection. That's the ideal situation. Now, some of the restaurants would have challenges with that, perhaps on location on where they could put that within their establishment and training their staff on how to utilize that system and keeping it clean of other contaminants. So there are some challenges there, and we recognize that. So we're working hard to on our public outreach to help educate them on options and different ways to execute a compliant program.
And then do we monitor them for clean organics? And so in other words, might be some that aren't, they're just adding a lot of contaminants to it, and it's sort of a 50-50 mix because people aren't trained up or paying attention. Is that our responsibility to monitor it?
It's the hauler's responsibility to monitor
Okay.
that, and it's their responsibility to report that back. So with the ordinance change, it'll be a little bit more complacent upon the haulers to help implement that program and monitor the program of its success. And if they reach challenges and they've exhausted all their resources as outlined, then we would get involved and help assist in bringing that business into compliance or other resources that we could potentially have available to work with them.
So have we done that? Have we issued citations to businesses prior?
Not as of yet. Our municipal code doesn't allow us to, so we need to make this change in
So
order
we
to
need a
do
little,
that.
right.
Yeah.
We need to be able to enforce that a little
Correct.
more strongly. Thank you.
Yes.
Do we have to follow up on that, do we have to set up a whole enforcement mechanism? Are we going to rely on the franchise holder to be the key enforcer?
There is going to be some dependence upon city staff to follow through on some of the enforcement that's going to come out of this. And as this program continues to grow all the way throughout, even to the residential level, it's going to become burdensome for us to monitor that. Again, we're writing this program so that a lot of the burden is on the hauler, and it is complacent upon them to do so, but there will be points where they've exhausted all their resources, and we would have to, get involved. And that would require staff time or the time of our consultant to follow through on those issues.
Well, and certainly it's going to separate the haulers, those who maybe are large hauler organizations who certainly are familiar and follow state regulations, and those who are smaller occasional haulers who perhaps are not so cognizant of what state mandates are. So it's going to really determine, they'll sort themselves out, I guess.
Yeah, we imagine through attrition, that there's going to be some changes of the different haulers that can provide the service and meet the compliance. But that's, yet to be determined. And we're just hoping by the change of this municipal code and the franchise amendment, that'll help us to really attract and maintain the business establishments that we want to work with, that we know could keep us in compliance.
Okay, all right. Please proceed.
So last steps on our proposed ordinance revision. We're going to go back to the working group with our final revision and hopefully have that prepared for the first reading in September. And then we've retained, like what we mentioned earlier, we've retained a PR firm for public outreach efforts and should notify businesses impacted by this ordinance. So our goal is to give a heads up to everyone that this is coming, that it won't be a surprise, and they'll know what to expect coming forward. So,
what is your anecdotal, informal, non-scientific opinion about how informed the customer base is, the business and multifamily owners?
Yeah, I'm going to refer to Trevor on this one. He's been working on that.
We send a letter per state law. The city sends a letter to every non-compliant generator, and all the haulers are required to notify the businesses that they have that are not in compliance. So they get at least 2 touch points each year between the city and the hauler. And believe it or not, people are still caught off guard or surprised by this, just because the nature of restaurants, there's a lot of turnover. And
there's really no consequence, right?
Yeah, the state did
they
not
get a letter
include,
and nobody follows up.
Precisely, yeah. So the state doesn't have any enforcement mechanisms built into the AB 1826 or 341. It's incumbent on the city to move those forward. So this would take this to the next level.
But most people, I guess the question then, most businesses are not fully aware.
Some have taken it by the horns, so to speak, and they've embedded it into their corporate culture to be, a steward of the environment and be sustainable. And those tend to be some of the larger corporate chains. The ma and pa's are more than willing to work with the city to do whatever it takes to operate in the city. And then there's some folks that honestly just don't know. And there's another smaller category of folks that just don't want to do it because they don't want to train their staff. They basically are waiting for fines to actually implement the programs.
So we're really directing it to the franchise haulers as well as to the business operators.
Yes.
Okay. All right, please proceed.
Okay, next segment here, we're going to talk about the proposed franchise amendment. So like we talked about before, the change to municipal code also gives us the opportunity to amend our franchise agreement. So just to cover some of the changes that are incumbent upon that. So current hauler compliance implementation requirements are vague. So the franchise agreement isn't really clear as to how the hauler is to implement the program and to work with the establishment. It just says that they are to provide a program. So there's a lot to be desired on that. So we're working on cleaning that up. The franchise lacks an out clause for accounts that refuse to implement a recycling program. So like we mentioned earlier, there are some of those accounts that exist, and we need a way to be able to work through those. Haulers do not have the authority to require businesses to implement state-mandated recycling programs. As it currently stands, it's between the hauler and the establishment to be able to work this program out. And the city is aware of their efforts, but there's not a lot that could be done to really toe the line to follow through on the program. So this change will help with that as well. Next component here would be it revises the franchise to enhance hauler requirements for program implementation. Talked about earlier. It allows for referral of recalcitrant accounts to the city for compliance actions. So now once the hauler's done all their due diligence, they've done everything that they can to work with the establishment to bring them into compliance, and their efforts still aren't yielding the desired results, then they could then be referred to the city, and we would be able to get involved and work with them and have other resources made available, or if so be it, come to enforcement action. So. And then finally, requires best practices to be implemented and recorded by the hauler before referral to the city for ordinance enforcement. So again, this requires the hauler to do their due diligence. They've really got to make sure the efforts put forward, and we'll have ways of being able to establish that. So. And then the other issue that we wanted to clean up on the franchise amendment was the collision avoidance. So per Section 18C, all haulers are required to have collision avoidance systems in place, and the franchise amendment reinforces the requirement and requires annual reporting of collision avoidance systems. So right now, our franchise agreement just requires them to have one, and that's all. It doesn't really go into much detail on that. So we just wanted to clean that up and have it a little bit more clear as to what our expectations are to meet that requirement, and how we will be able to verify that the requirement is being met and that it's achieving the desired results. So, and then just a couple other small items we're going to cover under this amendment too. It's going to tie construction, demolition, waste recycling requirements to state law, and that's the Cal Green program. And then it's also going to allow us to increase our insurance amounts since this program is growing so largely. It's going to have a need for that, so we're going to be able to do that as well. And then, so just a status update on this revision. It's running along the same lines as the ordinance change, and the city's attorney's office has completed their review of the amendment. It's ready for the working group review, and then we're on track to be brought before the city council for review and approval in September. So the municipal code and the franchise amendment will be coming concurrently before you to be able to review and approve, so that we're on the same timeline. And then just to touch on some pending legislation that's going to be coming down the line to be dealing with as we move forward. AB 1594 is alternative daily cover. This was passed in September of 2014. So this eliminates diversion credit for green waste used as alternative daily cover. And just to elaborate a little bit about alternative daily cover and what that is on a landfill, when they as they fill the landfill and move forward with bringing the waste in daily, they have to cover that material so the trash doesn't blow away, the birds can't get to it, all the other stuff. So green waste is allowed to be used as that alternative daily cover as opposed to just dirt or whatever else. But moving forward, January 2020, that will no longer be considered diversion. So although we currently or previously could send that material as alternative daily cover and get credit as diversion, that will change now. So in 2020, we will no longer have that option. This law will reduce the city's landfill diversion rate by 5% per year if no alternative processing options are identified. City Council Working Group currently assessing these options. So there's different options available on how this material could be processed. And the options that are currently available are limited, and more is to be coming on that, and we're kind of at the mercy of what the county offers, what other programs are made available to us in the county. So we're continuing to monitor that, continue to explore options, and hopefully avoid having to lose that 5% credit. So,
Mayor Pro Tem.
There's one other component to this as well. The county's going to start charging, right? So it's going to be a lot more expensive as well. What's the anticipated additional cost?
Historically, the city sends about 13,000 tons of green waste to the landfill as ADC.
Per year?
Per year, excuse me. And let me just run some calculations. The county has indicated that it'll charge full boat $35 roughly per ton for green waste that's used as ADC after January 1, 2020. So if you take your average times 35, About $469,000 per year additional processing cost for those materials.
And the question a lot of cities are having is who pays for that, whether it's the hauler themselves or it gets passed through. And I'm not going to I won't pass judgment on the answer yet, but I understand there is some concern and angst between cities and haulers on that issue. So we're talking an additional $439,000, which is important for our city because by charter we pay for residential. The city pays for the residential trash. So when we're talking about this, it's a lot of money.
It's a cost. Ms. Brenner.
Why is the state eliminating green waste as an alternative daily cover? Is it they feel it's more environmentally friendly?
Short answer, yes. Go ahead.
And what will they use to cover up the trash that this now keeps birds and...
Different landfill operators are going to look to different solutions. You can use reusable tarps and those types of equipment. Some folks use dirt and construction debris. But Orange County is a bit of an anomaly in that we heavily rely on ADC to meet our state diversion requirements. A lot of other parts of the state have figured out alternatives to alternative daily cover. And the other component is the state is trying to reduce methane emissions to comply with its internal greenhouse gas reduction goals. When green waste goes to the landfill as ADC, it creates methane gas, which exacerbates climate change. So the state's trying to crack down on that as well.
Okay, thank you.
So what cities will be required to do is eliminate, ultimately, in the next, this is 6 years, all waste that's produced by businesses, multifamily units, and residential homes, all organic waste, to find a repository for it. And so current waste haulers in the business are preparing for this, that they will have the capability to process organic waste. And whether it's hauled somewhere in the county or outside the county, it has to be hauled somewhere to be repurposed. So nothing goes into landfills anymore. Is that essentially where we're headed?
Yes, that's exactly the case. The state is looking to make landfills no longer an option, or less desirable option, or costly to use. The goal is to recover all material and repurpose it in some manner. So whether we recycle the material or reuse it as compost, or use it in a digester system and put gas back into the natural resources, whatever the case may be, they're driving everyone to look at other alternatives to deal with our waste, as opposed to just putting it into the landfill.
And in our case, it will mean transporting this waste somewhere, and there's certainly all the processing, enforcement, and transportation of this waste, whether it's locally or into another county, is going to cost big dollars for the city of Newport Beach, and all cities, but that's going to be a new cost we're going to be facing. Mr. Avery.
I'm just curious. So how many residential trash pickup areas do we have in the city? So 35,000, 40 homes?
22,549.
Oh, way off. What approximately would be the cost? Just a ballpark. Taking
about $1.75 per household per month of additional cost.
Thank you.
What was the amount you said?
$1.75 per household per month if the city passed the cost of processing ADC directly to the ratepayers.
Okay. Any other?
Hang on. To be fair, though, the ratepayers are us.
Right.
Right.
To the general fund, I guess.
Right. Okay. Just wanted to make sure it's important. Okay. Thanks.
Any other questions up here on the dais? Seeing none, we'll go out to the public. Any questions by the public on this item?
Was that the entirety of the presentation?
Oh, we have one more slide.
Oh, I
really quick.
apologize.
No, it's okay. No problem. It's the last slide here.
I wanted to talk about this one.
So
Okay.
just to talk-
I was already thinking I read that, so I thought I was thinking it was already done. My apologies.
So AB 1383, this is organic disposal reduction. So this was passed in September of 2016. This sets organic waste reduction goal of 50% by 2020 and 75% by 2025 based on 2014 levels. So this will require all businesses, residential households, and multifamily properties to recycle organic waste on or before January 1st of 2022. So the working group is currently assessing our options on that. So like we talked about earlier, there's going to be a lot of different options hopefully available by that point, but currently right now there's not. So we're just continuing to monitor that, continue to work with other resources and try to find ways of making the waste stream efficient on where we could take this material. And our goal isn't to create multiple waste streams. Our goal is to try to manage the existing waste streams we have, because the more waste streams you have, the more cans you have, and the more cans in front of a property that you have to deal with. So as we're all aware, space constraints are an issue. So we're mindful of that, and we're working hard to find the best solution.
Mr. Avery.
Has any municipality ever charged by the can? In other words, you know, some households are more efficient in the way they deal with, you know, their paper products and cardboard and all the rest of it, and go to recycling centers and get rid of it.
Yeah, some cities have variable cart rates. So if you have a 35-gallon trash cart, you pay less than your neighbor who has a 90-gallon trash cart.
Right.
So there's volume-based discounts in some cases. Some cities are experimenting with pay-as-you-throw, where there's an onboard scale on the trash container, and you pay by the pound, essentially,
Right.
for disposal.
Yep.
So.
Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem.
All right. So this one seems like it's a ways off, but it's not. And this is, I will say real quick, the subcommittee that's working on the working group that's working on this, we don't know the answer to this one. And it's pretty hard. And so we've got to bring this and talk it out a little bit, because here are a couple things. So one of them is, in order to get to this, there's no question we've got to get to a green can at some point, the green top. Right now, that's not a given option for most of the city. It is up in Newport Coast, isn't it? We've got two different contracts with CR&R. Well, actually, no, it's not.
I think in HOA, there's a landscape contract, and they take it up.
Okay, so then what we're looking at is, we've got to get to a green can. And in order to get to a green can, the question really is going to be, do we want to add a green can in addition to the blue top, which is the recycling, and the black top, which is the trash, or do we want to combine down the blue and the black into one? And we're going to talk about that in a second. And also have the green. And the reason to do that is because if you add a green on top of the black and the blue, then you have more trash trucks on the street. I don't think anyone wants that. And so the question is really going to be, first off, if that's where we have to get to, and my understanding is we have to get there based on the requirements of this, we've got to get to a green. Is that fair to say?
By 2022. 3 years.
We're hoping our best possible scenario is to have a two-can system, a wet system and a dry system.
Yeah, I guess, so let me rephrase that question. So under any situation, we have to get to having a green can, which is the wet, correct? Okay, so
yes, to make our goal, that would be correct.
Okay, so if that's what we have to get to, then the question then is, what do we do? Do we do a 2-can system, or do we do a 3-can system? And one of the things that's important for a lot of folks to understand, and we've talked about this, and actually we have this conversation in my house often, is the black and the blue, they both get separated out at the same facility. And part of the reason for that is because a lot of folks are really good at recycling, and a lot of folks aren't very good at recycling, and they don't quite know what goes into what. And the MRF, what's the MRF stand for? I forget.
Material Recovery Facility.
Okay, so the MRF actually has these unbelievable technological systems that separate out trash into recycling. It's incredible. And so if they both are going to the same place and they're both getting that through, there are a couple things. One, we're going to have to convince people that if we go to a black and a blue and combine it into just one can, that it's still recycling. So that's number one. I think we've got to be able to assure people of that. And then we also need to figure out a way of making sure that we've got the green can, the dry and the wet, basically. But it's going to take a lot of time for folks to work through that, because I'm going to go out on a limb and guess a lot of people have one or two people in their households who are very, very adamant about separating everything, and we've got to make sure that those folks don't feel cheated by the process. So that's number one. But the other, part of the other problem here, and that is one problem. We've got to work that one through. Another problem is this. in order to get here, we can't send organic waste to landfills anymore. So that green can, and this is going to come up also on the franchise agreements. Where do we send that? There are not a lot of facilities that will allow for this, and that's one of the things we're trying to work through as well. So just real quick, we actually invited a county representative into the last meeting that we had, and I will tell you, I'm not convinced the county is going to reach their goal. Like, they're trying to create their own facilities inside Orange County right now, and after listening, I'm not sure they're going to hit it in time for this to come up, let alone inviting other cities in to the process. So we don't have a lot of options, and that's one of the things that we're kind of struggling with. And I will say, I'm not sure how many of us have gone out and seen it, but our current waste hauler, CRNR, does have a facility out in Paris, California, and it is one of the best in the world by my understanding. But part of the problem is there's not a lot of opportunities, and there's a lot of cities understanding that right now. And so if they fill up, we're going to be in trouble in a couple of years. And so that's one of the things we're trying to struggle with too, is the timeline on this. And so it's hard. It's hard. And this is, and we say that about not a ton of things up here, but this one's hard. So I just want to make sure that when we're talking about this, that we're involving all of you, because we don't know the answer at the moment.
Well, and it's behavior change for everyone. And what I have been out to see R&R's facility in Paris. I thought I was going to the other Paris, but it was, but it was a great experience anyway. But we are fortunate, and I know they're sitting here. We are fortunate that they have made the investment to create this MRF facility, a highly sophisticated, where everything that goes in gets repurposed and created into small bite-sized pieces of whatever, steel to green waste. But right now, they're really the only game in town because the county isn't really capable. So it's going to be an interesting situation that cities are going to be running into. Mr. Muldoon.
Yes, could I ask Mr. Snow to come forward? I have a couple of questions of our contractor.
Good afternoon, Honorable Mayor and esteemed council members. I'm Jeff Snow with CR&R Environmental Services.
How are you? Good? You seem good.
Great.
Okay. How many cities do you...
How do I look?
You look great. You look great. A little nervous, but good. How many cities do you have the agreement where you haul the trash for the residents, like you do with Newport Beach?
We have 57 exclusive residential franchise agreements throughout Southern California and Arizona. 16 cities in Orange County, 10 in Riverside County, 2 in San Bernardino County.
And so I imagine this is front of mind, this problem for your organization as well.
It is. This legislation, it was signed by Governor Brown September 30th of 2014. Many of us chose to ignore it, and now we're 5 months away from needing a solution. So many of our partner cities are assertively and aggressively engaged in formalizing partnerships with solutions to help them comply by January 1 of 2020.
Are you able to share with us some of those strategies, or they're not ready for prime time yet?
I am. 17 of those cities have already signed agreements with us. Our original, very first city was here in Orange County. It was the Costa Mesa Sanitation District. They actually committed off blueprints. Eric Garcetti in the city of Los Angeles was our second and remain our largest customer, and the city of Temecula was the third. In the Riverside County 15 corridor, Temecula is really a bellwether city, and what they do, everybody else wants to do. So our remaining 9 cities, 100% of those cities are now partnered with us. In the last month, Aliso Viejo and Laguna Niguel have both unanimously voted to partner. I can tell you our vote count of elected officials is 95-0. Once people really understand the limited capacity and the environmental superiority of our solution and the lowest cost long term, it really becomes a decision, certainly not being confrontational with Mayor Pro Tem O'Neill. because it is a difficult decision, but the decision becomes very easy. If I may, Councilmember Muldoon mentioned that in 2 years and 5 months, residential food waste recycling will become required. That will take a whole additional cart that will be yellow. So cities that aren't partnered with a solution that can take green and food in a single cart will have to add a yellow cart. So you're going to see your Anaheims and Huntington Beaches with 4 carts, 4 trucks going down each street, and those rate increases will have to be 25 to 33% to pay for that Teamster and that $400,000 trash truck. Our cities that have already adopted partnerships with our ROAR facilities understand that they get the benefit of not having to add that additional pass and having 2 different recycling solutions, one for residential green waste and another one for residential food waste. We are the only solution that can take them commingled and co-digest them in our facility. So yeah, we're a little bit more right now than composting, but in 2 years, those cities that can find composting capacity are going to have the additional cost of a whole nother cart, a whole nother truck pass, and the cost of processing straight food waste, which is done in partnerships with wastewater plants and haulers. Waste Management owns the largest facility in the city of Orange. So I stand here with great confidence that our solution in the long term will be absolutely the lowest cost, the most environmental, the most convenient, and the safest, because I'll have the least number of trucks going down streets in our cities.
And we appreciate that. What is the environmentally superior technology you referenced?
We use high solids anaerobic digestion. We call our facility the world's largest cow. A cow eats hay and it flatulates methane gas. AOC wants to put diapers on them. That's San Joaquin Valley's issue. We capture 100% of that gas and it becomes RNG, or renewable natural gas. Molecularly, it's exactly the same as natural gas that we frack for from fossil fuel. We are the only negative carbon fuel on the planet because we're capturing methane that would otherwise go into our air to breathe from the landfill, and we're putting it right into our trucks. It's like Back to the Future here today. If you remember the crazy-haired professor with the DeLorean putting a banana peel in his car, that's exactly what CR&R has perfected. Today we have 500 of our trash trucks running off of renewable natural gas that we're making from the very waste that those trucks pick up from our partner cities.
And you're doing that in Newport Beach. Your trucks are running on that natural gas.
Our trucks in Newport Beach are running on natural gas, not renewable natural gas.
Oh, okay.
In July of 2018, we made the first and only interconnection with Sempra Energy, and we're putting our renewable natural gas into the pipeline so we could pipeline it here to where we fuel our trucks for Newport Beach and use that same RNG that we made here in Newport Beach.
So is there any point you think that the sale to Sempra or some other provider is going to offset the increased costs in collecting this trash?
In our economic model, we have federal RIN credits that were given from the EPA. We have state LCFS credits that were given from the state for having a low carbon fuel standard, and we are selling the gas to ourselves. We are using that gas in our Garden Grove facility for some of our partner cities that are already formally partnered with us at ROAR.
And as a contract city with CR&R, will we have preferential treatment if the demand grows to use your facility?
As our partner, Councilmember Muldoon, you'll always have preferential treatment, but we also ask you to be cognizant of the magnitude of the investment that our family-owned company has made in that facility. And we need to make sure that we're at 100% capacity. And we have many cities that we do not service offering a much higher per ton rate than what we've offered the city of Newport Beach to use our solution. We will not do that until you say yes or no. Once you say no, we'll respectfully ask that Yorba Linda or Huntington Beach or one of the other cities that has expressed written interest to us, that we give them that capacity. But we built this for our customers. We built this for you. We built it for Newport Beach, and we want to make it available to you however long your decision process may take.
Thank you.
Let me, as long as you're standing, Mr. Snow, let me ask you a couple questions. You mentioned the other cities, Temecula, et cetera, Aliso Viejo have signed up with you. Are they already operating with this organic waste program?
They are, and they're already putting their residential food waste into it. So while everybody else's diversion's going backwards, theirs is going forward. San Clemente, Westminster, Midway City, Stanton, Costa Mesa, Aliso Viejo, Laguna Niguel, all of these cities are now recycling food waste in addition to residential food waste in addition to green waste. One of the hardest components of SB 1383 that's not required till 2022, they're doing now, and it doesn't cost them anything extra, and it's making our environment better.
How long was the startup period for these cities once they signed a contract and got everybody, did they change their rates? How did they kind of get this all up and operating?
They did, Mayor Dixon, and the rate variance was really dependent upon how much green waste they produced. The lowest, I think, was $1.95 per home per month. The highest, $3.61 for the city of Orange with those very big yards. So it varies. We have a proposal that we can provide to the working group upon your request to give you exact numbers on what it would cost for Newport Beach. We know it's 13,000 tons per year, and we divide it the same way. The $1.75 that Trevor mentioned, keep in mind that's for zero diversion. That's treating it as trash, and it's still going to create methane in the atmosphere. And most of our cities, especially our coastal cities, have constituencies and have leaders that love this planet very much and that want to do the best for it. And we're going to be a little bit more than that, but we're also going to take care of your residential food waste, which is going to be a whole nother issue that some cities will be dealing with 2 years from now.
Okay, let me just understand the mechanics here. We talked in the presentation this afternoon about the franchise haulers. How many franchise haulers are doing what CR&R is doing? Do you know, just in terms of what the competition is doing?
CR&R is the only Southern California waste company with an anaerobic digestion solution. There is another anaerobic digester being built by a German company in Fontana. Waste Management and Republic Services have both signed feedstock agreements, but it does not handle green waste. The green waste is the largest fraction. This particular digester will handle biosolids, which is what's flushed down toilets, and it will handle food waste. But our high solid anaerobic digester, ROAR, using Eisenman technology, is one of a kind in the United States of America. It's the largest and most sophisticated in the world, and we hope to expand it as our economics allow us to do that. But right now we have Phase 1 and Phase 2 completely built and waiting for our own cities to commit or not to commit. So again, we'll be patient, but this is a 5-month. In 5 months, something has to change.
So that was going to be it. So that's the 5 months is really where, let me just go back to staff. So we are moving down the track of having a revised ordinance that will codify all what we're talking about. When was your timing that we would go forward and put out RFPs or discuss with haulers about what we need to do?
That's incumbent upon, the decision we make as to how we're going to process our material and which option we're going to utilize. So once we've made that decision, then we would be able to narrow down what our timeline would be in our implementation phase.
So you think we'll have that by September when you come at the proposed ordinance? It doesn't sound like we're there yet, right?
No, not close.
And if I may mention, Mayor, your city council back in 2014, Mr. Harp, your city attorney, and CR&R, very visionary in contemplating this legislation. It was included in your franchise agreement. So there's an administrative option to trigger this that really doesn't even require a vote from council. So that was contemplated. It is in your current franchise agreement, and it can be done administratively to either compost, or if we can find a place to compost, or to anaerobically digest. And the amount that was included in the franchise agreement is adequate to cover our proposal.
Oh, Mr. Muldoon?
I just want to say I like to try to do this before we lose the opportunity, especially if it's already, if we had the wisdom and forethought, I guess, which is shocking to me. If we had that forethought in 2014.
I don't think it was us. It was the prior council, I think.
No, we were. No,
it was 14.
I thought we voted on. I think we voted on. I remember.
Is that us?
Yeah. But
Good.
stand on your record, Diane. But it'd be great if we could hit that deadline. I don't know what it takes from us, but if it's administrative, or if you need to bring it for the council for a vote of confidence. I did not know a lot of what I've just learned today, but I'm very impressed. And
we would love to provide more tours at our facility at the Paris without Eiffel Towers to any of the council members, especially Councilmember Brenner, who's on the working group. But we can also do a study session, a brief one, to bring it to you and help you
I will
understand it a
endorse
little
the
bit more.
experience. It's the future, and I commend CR&R for the investment. As you say, a family-owned company. It's not a publicly traded company that has invested in this huge $6 or $10 million capital investment. Well, $60 million, I believe it is.
Yes.
$60 million.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor.
I knew I remembered that. Anyway, so good point. If you want to continue that thought. Mayor Pro Tem?
So I've taken a look at the administrative option, and I think that we need to, I'm just going to say, I think we need to look at it. It's not quite as great, I think, on the administrative side, but I think that we need to, I do want to see a proposal come through the working group at the next meeting. That would be helpful, because I agree we need to push this one forward. And we've, to be fair, we've been talking about this quite a bit at the working group. It's tough, because one of our things is trying to figure out what are the other options. And so to Councilman, I'm sorry, I can't remember if it was Mayor or Councilman Muldoon's question to staff. The question was, when are we going to be ready to do this? And I think the answer was, well, we've got to figure out which path forward we're going to take. The issue is we've been working through this, and that's the issue. That's the one that's why I wanted to make sure we talked about this. There are not a lot of paths forward. That's the thing that's been driving me crazy while we've been working this through. And we tried really hard to ask the County of Orange, hey, what are you doing for yourself? And they said, well, we're building facilities. Okay, well, how much can you take? We're not sure we're going to be able to take all of our own, and we're definitely not going to add on other people until we can figure that out. Okay. So then we start looking at, okay, what are the other options? And the other options are not great. And this is the thing. So when we're working this through, we have a really good option, and that's it. Yeah. And so that's the challenge, and that's why when we're talking about this, it's to Mr. Snow's comment about 5 months from now, I will just say, from a green waste perspective, we've looked at our numbers. We would probably be fine for a little while, but we can't just say, okay, we're fine for a little while. This 2022 will come fast, and it would be awful if we don't make a decision soon that causes a council in 3 years to be looking at us saying, why didn't you act?
I mean, now,
yeah, and so I do want to see this, and I do think, frankly, we gotta bring this to a head pretty soon.
Ms. Brenner.
The factor that was most impressive to me when we were talking about this was that this was our only option that allowed us to stick with 2 trash cans, right? We didn't have any other options, and that means fewer trash trucks in our community contributing to traffic and safety and that sort of thing. Yeah, and it is the best one for the environment. So I feel like the sooner we move forward and get people started on this, the better off we are. And if it's before we're actually required to do that, then that's even better, because that gives them time to get used to it. And in my house, well, in my family, the ones that are separating it so severely and are worried about combining, those aren't in my family. My concern is that this is going to make it easier for people who have not been vigilant about separating, to just separate between wet and dry, basically. And I think that once we get our citizens used to that, they're going to really appreciate this.
Oh, did you want to say something, Mayor Protem?
I'm sorry, yeah, just one last thing I forgot to mention, just so everybody understands, this is really expensive. It's really expensive. It's mandatory, so it doesn't matter, we have to spend it, but I will say it is really expensive. So when we get that proposal and it's coming up, just anticipate the sticker shock, because it's there. One thing real quick, I know that there is some kind of agency or law at the state level that talks about unfunded mandates and claims cities can make for unfunded mandates. I would love to see, I'd at least like a yeoman's effort on this one, because this is so expensive, and it is such an expensive mandate coming down from the state on this. And I get why they're doing it, but it is so expensive. So have I said it's expensive? I think, anyway, all right.
Well, all good comments. I will say, back to the visionary comment, I would like to see, I'm sure my colleagues would agree, Newport Beach wants to be on the forefront of not only doing the right thing, but doing the environmentally right thing within a cost structure that we and our residents can manage. And it is the solution is within our reach. So I would like to agree with my colleagues who have expressed, let's have a parallel path going forward, drafting the ordinance and the franchise agreements, and also the process that we would need to do to implement our existing franchise agreement for our existing hauler to start moving our waste in 2020 instead of 2022. Those 2 years are going to be here before we know it. Any other comments up here? Seeing none, I will now go out to the public. Any public comments, please come forward. Please come forward. Yeah.
Karen Corson, nice to meet you.
Wait, excuse me, ma'am, it's on this item.
No, it's not on agenda.
Okay, you could do that in the full session, or well, no, after we finish this discussion, we'll call for regular comments on public comments on non-agenda items. This is on the agenda. All right. Next speaker, please.
Hi, Carmen Rosso. As you look at how to implement this program, we have in the peninsula a lot of short-term rental, so that's going to be difficult to implement, to have the dry and the wet. Also on the beach, all the trash that you are in the beach, you won't be able to implement it. As you look at the green waste, many residential places, they may have their gardeners take the green waste with them. I don't know what's going to happen once this is implemented. With that, then maybe the gardeners are going to push back and say, no, you keep your green trash, and that will increase the volume. So just those things to consider.
Very good. Yeah. Did you want to speak? Okay. Next speaker, please.
Mayor Dixon, members of the council, my name is Jim Mosier. First of all, with regard to the working group that we've heard so much about, I just have to comment that I think it would have been cleaner when an issue like this comes up if it had been presented to the public at a council meeting, and it was the council that had appointed the working group rather than the staff creating a working group, kind of the staff privately telling council members to work on something that the public doesn't know they're working on. The result may be okay, but it's not exactly the public's business being done in public. So in the future, I would hope the staff would bring the issues to the public and the council in a public setting, and it would be the council who chooses who they want to work on the problem. Regarding the formation of the working group and the letter that we heard the city received, for the first time we heard about it today, it seemed, I heard, to have to do with AB 341, which, if I understood, it's the one requirement we're doing the best on so far, and it has nothing to do with green waste. It has to do with the basic recycling requirement. And I kind of got lost in the earlier slides as to what the 25 businesses that are not in compliance with that, what are they out of compliance about? Is it that all the trash from those businesses is going to the landfill? They're not recycling at all? They're not meeting the 50% requirement? They're not meeting the 75% requirement? Or what is it that they're out of compliance about? And does that 75% requirement not apply to the city as a whole? And how is the city doing on that, if that's still the requirement? And I kind of thought I'd heard that the 75% goal had been replaced with a requirement that cities get the per capita pounds per year that go to a landfill below a certain level. Is that now the current requirement for cities? And if so, how are we doing on that as a city? Those are my comments. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Do you want to attempt to answer how is the city doing? And
So just to clarify a little further, I'll go back on a few slides here really quick. So we were talking earlier about AB 341, mandatory recycling. So current compliance rate is around 90%. Approximately 25 businesses and multifamily complexes in the city do not have recycling programs. So that means they're not participating in the program. So
how many are? So 90%, so that's 100 and...
We could get those numbers for you momentarily.
And just to clarify also on AB 341, I'll go back a couple slides here. So if you look at AB 341 on this table here, mandatory commercial recycling state goal of 75% diversion by 2020. So we're meeting the goal of that, but our goal is to do our best. So we have identified 25 businesses who do not meet that. So our goal is to get them into compliance as well and improve our numbers even further.
So we can get to 100%. Is that what you're suggesting?
But hopefully, yes. But we are meeting our goal. We are in compliance with that, but there are businesses who are not, so we want to work with them.
Yeah.
The state's expectation is 100% compliance, so that 90% should be 100, and that's one of the reasons the city's considering this ordinance, and that CalRecycle is more or less telling us that we need one. And there's 250 total covered businesses in the city that are doing the right thing and recycling. So
that's good. That's very good. We appreciate that. Any other public comments? Please come forward.
Good afternoon. I'm Hoyen Yep. First, I want to say thank you for doing this. And this is a lot of work mixed with frustrations dealing with people. It's not easy. So I have some loose ideas. The goal is to reduce costs and trash. So I just have some general ideas. I think this also could go hand in hand with the trash provisions on the ocean side. Back to Speak Up Newport, Dave gave a good talk with Dean. So one of the things they said is papers can go into the new bin. So that will help reducing trash a lot. So I think the side of reducing confusion people have is that, you know where I'm going with this. This is not a paper plate. This is plastic coated. So this is not compostable. This is not recyclable. So if we only allow compostable, then that's less confusion. People can just, after dinner, after party, just throw the whole thing into the new bin. On the other hand, to reduce trash, I mentioned a few times about serve on request. We already have the plastic straws serve on request. So there's other serve on requests we can do. So that would be reducing trash. Outreach, that is a lot of work we need to do. So one thing I heard from Malibu is that in parallel to their plastic ban, their outreach part of it was to give samples out, compostable samples. They say seeing is believing. I mean, I keep learning this lesson, seeing is believing. So we could also give compost whatever we want to promote, the direction we're going to. So we can give samples to restaurants. And also at our events, we have lots of events here coming up, the Green Expo. Shane and John, our stormwater staff, always are at the table. So they could demonstrate some of this stuff we want people to go to. So that's one part of the education. Last, I want to say the magic of the plastic straw deal, that succeeded because the education hit the heart. Everybody saw the video of a turtle has a plastic straw and then also you go, ooh. So that enabled some cities to ban plastic straws, and in the end, that enabled the state to do it. So I think there's a great importance on public education on the heart. It's not easy, but thank you for what you do.
All right, any other comments on this item? Seeing none. Mr. Moulton, did you want to say something? Okay. All right, any other comments up here? Seeing none, so keep doing the good work, staff, and we'll look forward to hearing more. Oh, Ms. Brenner, did you?
Can I say one quick thing? I have to tell you that when I was in Texas, I saw a cartoon, and it pictured California, and it said, right to carry in California, and it showed a plastic straw in someone's belt.
Oh, how funny. As long as we're just making wrap-up comments, I will say in the city of New York, there are at least 5 bins, of 5 different colored bins. And if you don't comply, if a resident, and for residents, if you pollute a bin improperly, you get fined. So it's really quite stringent in New York City. Well, thank you, staff. Excellent. You've been preparing this work for many months. We appreciate your determination to keep moving this forward and keep us informed, and thank you, and we'll look forward to seeing you again in September. All right. Now, this is the time for public comments on agenda and non-agenda items, so please come forward. Ma'am, if you'd like to come forward.
On agenda items. My name is Sharon Corson. I called Mayor, as a matter of fact, and left a couple of messages for also Mr. Duffield, and I have talked in the past. My situation has been going on since January 2017, so I'm at the end of my rope. I retired from a school district, so I'm not, somebody can spend a lot of money on litigation with a large commercial company. I have a situation where the building permits were violated, and the citations were not given to me. I didn't purchase the building permit. Okay, I talked to David Reed, explained all it to him, but he says it still doesn't matter. So what I need to know is they abandoned the job, this company abandoned the job in April of 2018. They broke my second floor deck when they were installing doors that I paid for, and destroyed the skylight when they were installing windows, okay? So there's something here that's really serious. I need to make an appointment to talk with somebody, give them all details. I've gone through the California State License Board. They have some interesting information, but they can't enforce it as well for me. And would not take it seriously by this company. And also, I talked to the company, and they said that they had met with you, Ms. Dixon, at some point in the past about their at-home services company. You've spoken with them, as well as I talked to Mr. Duffield in the past. They need to get something going here as far as sitting down with somebody on the council to sit down and get over this. We don't have more time. Being excited right now myself for this building permit, this was not purchased by me, okay? It was purchased by this commercial company. Who to talk with? Who to make an appointment with?
Okay, are you finished with your comments?
Yes.
Okay, offline, Mr. Georges is here. I know his department, Community Development, has been talking with you and have been dealing with you for quite some time on this matter. Okay, so he's here, and he will be happy to speak with you offline. So he's sitting right over here, and he'll identify himself for you.
Okay.
All right, thank you very much. Any other comments on non-agenda items? Please come forward.
Oh, yeah, again, well, since I'm still here, might as well make this comment, mainly to the people who are watching. So I cannot say more about how hard working our water quality people are, and thank you to council members, whoever were on the committee. 4th of July, the beaches got trashed. We knew that by seeing pictures on social media. And just probably a week before that, we got the annual report from Hilda Bay, the beach report card. So that's the annual report. I mean, there's California and, the other states, but let's just talk about California. So there are 10 beaches in Orange County that are on honor roll. And last year, 4 of our beaches were on the honor roll. And this year, all 4 of us dropped out of the honor roll. So none of our beaches is on the honor roll. So I think I would like to say this is not because the city is not doing enough, although it would be nice if you ban plastics. But the people really need to step up. And another thing that kind of bothers me is sometimes the newspaper will say, how much the cleanup volunteers do. I know for a fact we do this much. So the cities clean the beaches every day in summer, so that's a lot of money. So people need to appreciate, treat our beaches, our harbor, like your own yard. That's my comment. Thank you.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Any other public comments? Please come forward.
Mayor Dixon, members of the council, my name is Jim Mosier. I have 3 comments. First, to clarify the earlier question I tried to raise, I was thinking of a 75% diversion by 2020 requirement that I've heard that applies to the entire city, commercial and residential. It's the total trash output from a city. And I just looked it up. It's actually had nothing to do with the presentation. It's a separate executive order. But I am curious whether that's still in effect and how the city is doing on that. And I would suspect you might be curious at how we're doing on that also, because I don't think that the MRF manages to get 75% of the stuff out of our residential cans and get that diverted. The second comment I wanted to make is to remind you in the closed session to ask yourselves about item A on the closed session agenda, whether that's really something you want the public not to know what you're discussing and not to invite any public comment on, or if it's something that if the public knew what it was, it would be equally good for the city. Third comment I wanted to make is, as you probably noticed, if you take out the Hogue development agreement item, today's agenda packet is pretty thin, but more often the agenda packet is very thick, and it comes as kind of a surprise to everybody on the Thursday before the council meeting. It's a great deal to digest, often dozens and dozens of items. And I have noticed that up until a few months ago, the city staff distributed in the lobby a kind of a tentative agenda so that the packet that came out on Thursday wasn't a total surprise. We had some idea as to what topics may be coming up. The Planning Commission continues to receive a tentative agenda telling them what is likely to come up on their future agendas. I realize it's only an educated guess, and the things on the tentative agenda may not actually happen as scheduled, but I think it was helpful for the public and you both to know what might be coming up in 2 weeks, 3 weeks, or a month from now. And I do not know the reason why the tentative agenda has disappeared, and I would encourage you to encourage the staff to resume that practice. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Any other public comments? Seeing none. All right, we'll go to our closed session. Mr. Harp?
Thank you, Mayor Dixon. The City Council will adjourn to closed session to discuss items 4A and B, including meeting with legal counsel to discuss whether or not to initiate litigation in regards to one matter, and meeting regarding existing litigation for the matter entitled Catherine McCoggy versus City of Newport Beach. Thank you.
Okay, we are recessed until 7 p.m. Thank you. All right, thank you. Good evening and welcome to the Newport Beach City Council regular session. July 23rd, want to get that record for the date. Today, regular City Council meeting. Madam Clerk.
The record will reflect that all members of council are present.
And Mr. Harp, is there a closed session report, please?
Thank you, Mayor Dixon. There's no closed session report this evening.
Okay, we will have the invocation by Councilmember Muldoon, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance of the Newport Beach DeMolay chapter. Are they here? And so if you want to come forward after the invocation, then you can lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
Please bow your head and share some prayer with us if you so choose. Heavenly Father, we thank you for the opportunity to live in a country that has freedoms and have democracy. We pray for your divine wisdom. We ask that you fill our hearts with love and gratitude. We pray for our neighbors, for the state of California, the United States, and the entire world. In Jesus' name, amen.
Please join us in pledging allegiance and saluting our flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Madam Clerk?
The city provides a yellow sign-in card to assist in the preparation of the minutes. The completion of the card is not required in order to address the city council. If the optional sign-in card has been completed, it should be placed in the box provided at the podium. The City Council of Newport Beach welcomes and encourages community participation. Public comments are generally limited to 3 minutes per person to allow everyone to speak. Written comments are encouraged as well. The City Council has the discretion to extend or shorten the time limit on agenda or non-agenda items. As a courtesy, please turn cell phones off or set them in the silent mode.
And now is the time for City Council announcements, new items that council members would like to be introduced for future agendas, and oral reports from City Council on committee activities. Mr. Avery.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Let's see, activities. Yesterday with Council Member Joy and Council Member Will, I attended the Homeless Task Force Committee meeting, and it was I thought, a very good meeting. We held it in the library room down there, the community room, and we had so much public input, and it was excellent, and a lot of concern, obviously, a lot of interest, and that's just the sort of thing the committee needs to hear and be aware of. So, and I'm sure other council members will speak on that a little further. Also attended the Orange County Sanitation District operations meeting, and also just wanted to commend the city and everybody that was involved, especially those Corona Del Mar folks, on a tremendous opening of the fire station. And I'll just leave it at that. It was really one of the best community events I've attended here. Just the spirit of it was tremendous. And tonight in the audience is my newest mentee, since we honored Deborah Bostick at our last meeting, but Kanai Adams there, and has a real interest in political science, a junior at Newport Harbor High School, and he's also a sailor, so it works out perfect for me. So I'm really happy to be his mentor this year. And that's it. Thank you.
Very nice. Mr. Duffield.
Thank you. I don't have much, but I'm very, very glad to report that I'm seeing finally our June gloom, now July gloom, is dissipating away.
Thank you for all your efforts.
And thank you, staff, for all that you put in for that. And nothing big, just a good water quality meeting with Councilman Herdman, and he runs a good meeting, and we had a lot of good things coming out of that. And I'm going to end it with that. Thank you.
Very good. Mr. Muldoon.
Thank you. Yes, I also attended the grand opening of the community library and fire station, and I was happy to see that our fire department morale was high to see the beautiful facilities that they'll be enjoying, and the community, I think, is going to benefit from the public safety aspect, as well as the increased services available at the library. It was such an attraction that people from neighboring cities came, kind of surprisingly. I guess word got out, so they decided to come and try to be there for something that they weren't really part of, but they wanted to be around it. And it was kind of odd because some people even went so far as to sort of pretend like it was their city. So I guess it just shows you how supportive the neighboring communities are of Newport Beach and how honored we are to have their attention in Newport Beach. Thank you.
Well said. Ms. Brenner.
Yes, I met with Grace Leung, Dave Webb, Laura Detweiler, and Sean Levin regarding the organic chemical pilot project. The emphasis was on the feedback we're getting from the athletic teams in our area and how they felt about our test program. I also met with Jody Patrice regarding the Balboa Island Preservation Association and talked with her about the Marine Avenue issues and also other preservation issues that I'd like to see in our city. On Saturday, I was privileged to do a tour with Newport Beach TV of the new fire station. My grandson came along with me, and we got to tour the new facility, the fire station, alone. And his first question was one that I heard throughout the day from other citizens was, where is the fire pole? Why do we not have a fire pole? And Chief Chip Duncan was very eager to answer that question and explained that they actually found that fire poles are dangerous. And so that we are not putting fire poles. This is the first fire station we have not put a fire pole on. And when my grandson told his mother that, she said, well, how are they getting down to the fire engine? And he said, well, the stairs, obviously. So that was pretty funny in our family. The other thing that we did was it was just such a beautiful, wonderful, community-spirited day. And what I heard from all the people around us was it felt like small-town America. It felt like we were all in this together. People just thanked me right and left for the fact that it felt like we were a community again. And that was just so rewarding. And the fact that here's a few of the pictures from the day, some of our supporters, and we got to ride in the fire engine when they pushed the fire. It's a tradition to push the fire engine in for its first time in the fire station. So Diane and Gavin and I got to ride in the fire truck and do that. But the spirit of the day was something that you just can't imagine unless you were there. It really did feel like we were just a small community again, and that was pretty exciting. And then we had our homeless task force last night, as Brad mentioned, and I feel very encouraged by the subcommittees we've formed and the expertise that we have on that committee. And we recognize the frustration that people are experiencing, and I think that that's sometimes it comes out in ways that maybe it's not even intended, but we all feel the frustration of that also, and we're excited to get busy and get our subcommittees going. So that was another thing last night. And then today I attended a going away luncheon for someone who has been active in our community since the 80s, for Carol Hoffman McDermott. And Carol has presented in front of the council on projects for as long as I can remember, and always done it respectfully. And the thing that I'm going to miss about Carol is that she always honored all points of view, and she really tried to take into account how other people felt about one of her projects and work for a good solution. So she's moving to Arizona, and we're going to miss her. But that was an interesting and fun lunch today.
Mr. Herdman.
Okay. What have I been doing since our last council meeting? I moderated at the Speak Up Newport meeting on the John Wayne Airport General Aviation Improvement Program. As Duffy mentioned, he and I held a water quality meeting, our monthly meeting. My wife and I attended the Junior Lifeguard Hot Dog Barbecue Dinner. I gave my monthly report at the Chamber of Commerce Government Affairs meeting, and just before that morning, the Corona Del Mar Residents Association meeting. I attended the Vector Control monthly meeting in Garden Grove, attended Fire Chief Chip Duncan's retirement, the ribbon cutting ceremony at the Corona Del Mar Library and Fire Station, and then last night, yesterday evening and into the night, we held our Aviation Committee meeting. It was a meeting of the newly repurposed, reorganized committee. Half of our members are new, half of our members are returning. The city has retained the law firm of Cooley, LLP, and Bill O'Connor, one of the attorneys with that firm, gave a presentation to the Aviation Committee on ANCA, the Air Noise Capacity Act, defined that in detail for the committee members. Our city attorney did an excellent training on Brown Act meetings and subcommittees and the authority that they have. And overall, we had a very good meeting. And I think that's it. Thank you.
Very good. Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you. So I'll talk real briefly about the Homeless Task Force. Our first meeting, we had about 5 members of the public, and we were able to meet in the conference room. Last night we met in the Friends Room and filled it, and so I appreciate the interest and the level of discussion that we were able to have last night on a number of topics. The subcommittees that Councilmember Brenner referenced will be discussing crisis response at the OCTA facility, housing options, data collection and accuracy, public education, what other cities are doing, and enforcement, legal constraints, and risk. So if you're interested in any of those, please by all means reach out to Council Members Avery, Brenner, and me, and we'll make sure that those are wrapped in and discussed at the subcommittee level. And then you have a quick slide. So our finance department received a couple of really great awards recently. I tried really hard to find a way to spice this up with a picture or something, but I couldn't do it. So the Government Finance Officers Association, national organization, gave our comprehensive annual financial report a Certificate of Achievement for Excellence in Finance Reporting. This is an annual event for our finance department, but it shouldn't go without noting how impressive that really is. And then Moody's Investor Services rated Newport Beach yet again AAA, the highest rating, and that is indeed a big deal. If you would like to see the entire rating, it is on our website, I believe, and if it's not, it will be. But it shows a strong finance. It shows a very strong financial balance sheet. One thing they do note is unfunded pension liability, and so that's one of the hits that we took in the discussion on the investor services, and it's a hit that just about every city out there is taking. But based on the AAA rating, we are managing it better than most. A few things coming up. On Saturday, there's the Ben Did Go 4.0. That's a fundraiser with the Ben Carlson Foundation, where a bunch of some of my craziest friends are going out and paddling, not boating, paddling from Catalina to Newport Beach. So they'll start on Saturday morning, and they'll make it into the pier around 2 or 3 o'clock. And then I have office hours coming up on August 7th from 8 to 10 a.m. at the Newport Coast Community Center. I had my biggest showing ever this past time, so I'd like to, 6. So I had 6 people.
6?
I had 6. It's huge.
My
and
gosh.
so maybe we can get 7 at this one.
Find enough chairs.
Actually, I couldn't. Just as an aside, Newport Coast Community Center, one of the reasons I host it there is because it's amazing how many times I've said, it's at the Newport Coast Community Center, and someone will say, where's that? So if you live in Newport and haven't been to the community center, it's really nice, and you should come. But it's very busy in the summer because of classes, and I gave up my spot thinking that I'd only have 1 or 2 people coming, and so we had the tiny little office, and I had 6, and no, there weren't enough chairs. So anyway, and then...
Standing room only.
Yep, and then I just want to say, happy 10th anniversary to my wife coming up this week. You can send congratulations to me and condolences to her. Thank you.
Sympathy. I just have a few. Last week, I guess it was, I attended the reception celebrating the 25th anniversary of our Central Library. There's a series of events and programs going on throughout the year. The 25th anniversary is really a special commemoration for our city and our great library, and a lot of great programs are underway. So check the city website calendar for what's going on at your local branch library, and I'll get to the Corona Del Mar branch in a moment. Also, that same night, I'm glad you made it over to the hot dog barbecue. I got there late while they were having a hot dog eating contest, which was fun, at the junior lifeguard event, and that was amazing. I'd say there were several thousand people there. Unbelievable. It was parents and friends just enjoying, and the junior lifeguards enjoying what a beautiful night that was, and eating lots of hot dogs. I swore in the new officers of our Friends of Oasis Board of Directors. The Friends of Oasis is a really important, significant volunteer group supporting our Oasis Senior Center. And it's a little formal ceremony that they take very seriously, and I was happy to read the State of California Oath of Office. We all attended the retirement celebration of our now soon-to-be former police chief, Duncan, and we last week, and lots of fun stories for him. But the greatest event of all was really for his last public event was the opening of our new fire station in Corona del Mar and the library, the branch library. And just as I can't improve on what's been said, it was just a tremendous community event, as some pictures here. Councilmember Brenner showed a photograph on her slides. I don't know if you could bring it up, whoever has it, but with right back there, this in the lower left, Karen Carlson is standing there with Tim Heatherton and Councilmember Brenner. And let me just talk about her significance to our community. I think it was at least 4 years ago where Citizen Brenner was standing right down there in the front row with her granddaughter Lucy and making a plea for the city council support to fund and replace the current, at the time, branch library and fire station. Councilmember Brenner was speaking primarily on behalf of the library as such an important center for our community, for the nannies and parents whose children are carried or strolled in the stroller to our branch library every day, and it's a center of community energy and education. But one of the important aspects of Joy Brenner at the time, not Councilmember Brenner's presentation, was to really talk about the community coming together. Her leadership formed the Friends of Corona del Mar Library, and they made the difference, and it just shows that our residents count. Voices from our residents is important always, and important in making a difference in the community and making their opinions felt to the city council as your elected representatives. And that library and fire station, it's just a jewel in our eyes, and we celebrate its opening. But I also want to say that 4 years ago, I spoke a lot about the importance of public-private partnerships in our community, that our general fund money paid for that building, but it would be even better if some measure of private participation through donations contributed in some way. And Ms. Carlson here, it was publicly stated, I'm not saying this for the first time, she wrote a check to the city of Newport Beach for $50,000, and every book in the children's library, book and other materials, is brand new, thanks to Ms. Karen Carlson. And just makes my heart just swell with pride that our community, of course, has wonderful people, like generous people, and the spirit of giving is alive and well in Newport Beach. Similarly, with the library in general, I mentioned the 25th anniversary, and we couldn't even have that library if not for the significant donor contributions that funded the library 25 years ago, and will continue to be involved in, as we all know, we are pursuing down a path on our new library lecture hall. And I know that already, I think close to $1 million has already been pledged for that project and growing. So our community spirit is alive and well in Newport Beach. It's just tremendous to talk about it and remind people, not that you need reminding, that it's an honor, it's a pleasure to serve and participate on behalf of all of you in Newport Beach, because you all care about our city so much, and it's just a pleasure. I think that's it. Did I say everything I was supposed to? Oh, one more thing on the trolley. The trolley. Our trolley continues to run each weekend on Saturday and Sunday through Labor Day on the peninsula. Be sure to tell your visitors that they can park for free at the city's Avon Street parking lot just off Riverside or Tustin Avenue. And the first trolley departs 10 a.m. and the last pickup is 9:30. Avon is just off Tustin and Coast Highway. I frequently ride the trolley just to do my own personal focus group, and always delighted to talk. I talk to everybody on the trolley, and interestingly, on the times I've ridden, most of the passengers are residents. And this is a wonderful phenomenon. They're actually parking in the public spot, and they live in Newport Coast. Many of them live in Newport Coast, and they're getting out of Newport Coast and coming down to the peninsula and enjoying the beauty of our beaches. But many people tell me they had never been able to do this on a summer weekend because parking is just virtually impossible. So I'm glad to know that our residents, as well as visitors, are enjoying our trolley. And I think that's it for all my announcements. Do we have any? I think we've done all that. Now we're moving on to the consent calendar. So items, did I skip something? No, I need to have public comments on items, the council announcements, or oral reports. I'm glad I didn't miss that. So come forward, Debbie.
I have a comment on the consent calendar. Is this the appropriate time?
After we get through it. Okay. All right. Items removed. It seems like I'm missing something. Am I missing something? I'm missing a page in my agenda item here. Hold on. Public comments. Council, any items to pull from the consent calendar? Items 1 through... I'm missing a page? Is that right? Okay. Mr. Avery.
I have none.
Mr. Duffield. Mr. Muldoon.
I'd like to lodge a recusal on item number 7 regarding the undergrounding as it could possibly relate to telecommunications, source of income for me. And I'd like to pull item 8.
All right. Ms. Brenner? Mr. Herdman?
None.
Mayor Pro Tem?
I have none.
All right. Do we have a motion? And I have none.
Okay, then I move balance of the consent calendar with item number 7 showing a recusal from Councilmember Muldoon and item number 8 being pulled by Councilmember Muldoon.
Okay, and let's have public comments, please. Well, first of all, do we have a motion?
Wait, I'm sorry. So,
I'll second.
I needed a second. Then
Second
Councilmember
that.
Brenner had a quick comment, I think.
Thank you.
I had a comment on our one of the item number 10. I just wanted for the record to state that when it has District 6 made $6,000 contribution to the Corona del Mar Chamber of Commerce as my, it was not mine. It was done before I took office by my predecessor who gave $6,000 to the Corona del Mar Chamber of Commerce. I appreciate the Corona del Mar Chamber of Commerce, but there are a lot of other organizations in my district that also would benefit from some of these discretionary funds. So I just wanted in the record that this was not my decision.
Okay. Do we have a second? We have a. All right, let's go out to the public for public comments on the consent calendar, excluding item 8.
Thank you, Mayor Dixon, members of the City Council. My name is Debbie Stevens. I am president of the Corona del Mar Residents Association, and I'm speaking on their behalf today. And I will first say ditto to all of what you said about the opening of the fire station. It was a great day, and it did feel like a small community. So thank you for making that happen, all of you. I just wanted to talk about the noise ordinance briefly. We sent out an email to basically explain what we had done with respect to a survey that our community did, or our organization did. And this was at the concern, Simone had brought it up, that there was some concern about how much support we had for this kind of an ordinance. And so in the category of better late than never, we went out to our membership, which is about 700 households, and the households within CDM are about 6,600. So it's about 11% of the households. So for all the statistical stuff, it comes out to be statistically significant. But with the questions, do you support or oppose a sign requirement for new and substantially remodeled projects? 96% of those polled favor, or that took the survey, was in favor of those signs. Should signs be limited to the village or to all construction projects in CDM? And it was 91% supported for everywhere in CDM. To the question, do you support or impose enforcing noise restrictions noise restrictions are the Saturday noise restrictions for new projects and remodels. 87% of the people supported that. Should Saturday construction noise enforcement be limited to CDM Village or to all of Corona del Mar? 89% supported all of Corona del Mar. And the only thing, so we're looking at like 90% support on most of these things, which is pretty substantial. And then the question of what about for do-it-yourself projects on the weekend? Should we worry about noise limits on that? And that was where we had 52% saying that no, they did not support that. So other than that one issue, we have pretty big support for the noise ordinance, and I think we should go forward with that. Thanks.
Thank you. Did you want to say something?
Yeah, just so those who got the survey, we never asked for it to cover do-it-yourself projects. No. Okay,
sorry.
We did not ask for do-it-yourself projects. That was never, I don't know how it made the survey, but that was not the intent. It was simply, if you do it yourself, that's fine. But if you do anything, whether it's paid or yourself, it be within certain noise requirements.
Yeah, just simply noise. Ms. Brenner.
I'm not sure about that. That we excluded do-it-yourself projects? Is that what you said?
No, they're not covered. Well,
I mean, hypothetically, someone could, do a jackhammer themselves, I guess.
Or sanding or sawing.
It wouldn't be noise.
My understanding is that it's any project, do it yourself or professionally done, it cannot exceed the noise.
You cannot, yeah, and that's what they found, that the support was not there for. But I just wanted to say thank you to the Corona del Mar Residents Association, because this was done so well, and it was really constructed in a way to get as much feedback from the community as possible, and that's what I was appreciative of.
Okay, and you're going to make an amendment to the...
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Thank you, Ms. Brenner.
Our city clerk noted, we have slightly amended minutes that were in our packet, and I'm sorry, I forgot to include that as part of my motion, so I need to modify the motion to include the balance of the consent calendar with item number 7 showing a recusal from Councilmember Muldoon, item number 8 being pulled by Councilmember Muldoon, and then amended minutes that were part of our packet. And is that, I think, Mr. Duffield, you had the second. Is that appropriate for you? Okay.
Any other public comments? Please come forward.
Mayor Dixon and members of the council, my name is Jim Mosier, and regarding Item 3, which Debbie Stevens just commented on, to be clear, what is before you tonight is not whether you want the ordinance or don't want the ordinance, but it is a follow-up ordinance that will allow organizations to opt out of the ordinance that has already been adopted and is going into effect next month. And I think the results of our survey underscore that the opt-out ordinance has not been carefully thought out. In particular, the opt-out ordinance was prompted by a letter from the Newport Shores Community Association. Their board thought that the homeowners in their area wanted to opt out of the Saturday noise restrictions, which would effectively ban commercial construction on Saturdays. Unlike the Corona del Mar Residents Association, that board did not, at the time of their letter, have time to poll their residents to find out what their attitude was towards the construction signs. But the ordinance as currently drafted, as I understand it, and as staff explained in their staff report 2 weeks ago, would not give Newport Shores the opportunity to do what they want to do, which is to opt out of the Saturday noise restriction, but possibly keep the signage requirement. From what you heard in Corona del Mar, the signage requirement is very popular. The fences around the construction projects are already required. Whether you're in an HOA or not in an HOA, when you do construction of a certain magnitude, you have to put up a fence around it. And the ordinance would require that the fence has contact information on it. It seems like a no-brainer that people would want to know contact information when they see a fence. But the ordinance as currently drafted and as you're about to adopt will not give the Newport Shores people who wanted this that opportunity to keep that requirement and eliminate the other one. So I really think it needs some more work and amendment before you adopt it. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Any other public comments on the consent calendar? Please come forward? Seeing none. All right, any council comments? Ms. Brenner, did you have another comment?
Well, I do think it's significant that we're not separating these because it does seem like there's more support for one than there is for the other. So I would like to.
By whom?
So just briefly, if I could address that, I think it really comes down to an administrative type of issue. We already are dividing the city into basically two zones. If you start basically separating out the signage issue from the Saturday issue, then we have to basically tell all the contractors who are working out there, well, you can do this here, you can do that there. It makes it very difficult to administer, and it's difficult for code enforcement to go out and enforce. So we kind of lumped them together. Either you're part of this program or you're not part of this program, just for kind of ease of administration.
Well, and also, would you clarify also, Mr. Mosher said that the ordinance would prohibit Saturday construction. That is not true.
Noise.
It does not prohibit Saturday construction. It basically imposes noise limits for construction that's being done.
Yeah, I mean, they could still be there and quietly pound nails, I suppose, if they wanted to.
But I think that Newport Shores was asked, they're not able to opt out of part of it. They're either out of it or in it.
Right.
Yes.
And Mr. Georges, did you want to add any more comments?
Correct. I just want to answer Councilmember Brenner's question. Correct. They're either in it or out, not in it. And so if the council were to pass the item this evening, staff will come in about 30 days, so probably either late August or early September, with a resolution to allow Newport Shores to opt out. And that's what this ordinance is for this evening. So we'll be coming back again from Newport Shores since they've already sent that letter in to us.
Okay. All right. Any other council comments? Seeing none, let's vote.
Prior to reading the vote, I'll read the ordinance titles for items 3 and 4. Ordinance number 2019-11, an ordinance of the City Council of City of Newport Beach amending sections 10.28.040 and 15.16.010 of the Newport Beach Municipal Code to provide a process for homeowners associations to opt out of Saturday construction-related noise regulations and temporary construction project signage requirements, and ordinance number 2019-12, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Newport Beach amending a development agreement between the City of Newport Beach and Hoag Memorial Hospital Presbyterian. The motion carries unanimously, 7-0.
I just want to say I neglected to say that the motion was Mayor Pro Tem, seconded by Councilmember Duffield. I say that just so it gets in the record correctly. All right, going to item number 8. Mr. Muldoon, did you want to comment on that?
I'm going to request a staff report on this, or at least I can ask questions of whoever is. Is this yours, Grace?
Yes, I'm certainly prepared to answer. I also could bring up our Deputy City Manager, Tara Finnegan, as well.
Okay. How long has Mr. Edwards had this contract with the city?
Well, the present contract is one that began on May 23rd of 2017. But I will say that Tom Edwards has been a consultant with us since 2008.
And in his public life, who was Mr. Edwards?
In his public life, he is a former city council member and mayor.
And what services does he provide for us at this time?
At this time, he provides a variety of tasks and activities related to our airport and working to do works under the direction of the Deputy City Manager and myself to help us contain the impacts of the effects of the John Wayne Airport, which includes addressing community concerns and questions regarding noise, working together with us in our initiatives with the air carriers to look at different departure patterns. Also working together most recently on the GAIP project with the county, working together in terms of talking with county staff and other consulting areas there in addressing the GIP project, and then other projects of that nature that are all airport related.
And he's a California licensed attorney, correct?
Yes.
What's the total dollar amount expended for Mr. Edwards' services between the years 2008 and 2017?
I do not have that number from 2008 to the present time. We do know under the current contract, we're looking at about $273,000 in total.
Under the current contract, $273,000 for how long of a term?
Since 2017, so that's 3 years.
You don't have available the contracts, the total amount for 2008, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14?
I don't have those with me. No, I don't have those right now. We can certainly get that information.
The standard agreement is a base salary of 10,000, or the standard agreement is, let's see.
5,000 per month for the first 25 hours, and then it's an hourly rate above that each month of $300 per hour.
It says it's an amount not to exceed $85,000, correct?
Oh, in total for the year.
Okay, so $85,000. Let's say that he did not bill any extra hours, which is not the truth, but let's just say it. So total of 9 years. So $765,000. This next term agreement's gonna be for 273, so 273. So we're looking at roughly $1 million to former councilman and former mayor of Newport Beach. I'm not aware of who his competitors are in this pursuit, but I am of the opinion, after observing his services directly and after hearing hearing numerous complaints from residents about just the knowledge base that's now required for this position, that it's my opinion that the services are no longer needed for this time, and I'll make a motion to table this contract indefinitely, and he could always be considered down the road, but I would like to see this contract terminated. So that's my motion.
Is there a second?
Motion died for lack of a second.
I'm sorry. Okay. Motion died for lack of a second. Okay. Any other comments on this item?
I'd like to move staff report, please. Staff recommendation.
Do we have a second? We have a second. Mr. Herdman motion and Ms. Brenner seconds. Any comment? I have a question, as long as we've pulled it, of the city manager. Could you just provide a little bit more information of why the monthly retainer is exceeded and what drives that over time over overtime?
Oh, the additional hours.
Additional hours.
It varies from each month. Sometimes there's extensive projects. For example, a lot of work was going on around the GIP, so that certainly required several additional hours. And really, there's a lot of fluctuation that will occur with community requests. Tom Edwards has extensive knowledge and experience with a lot of the governing and source documents, whether it's our settlement agreement, the ANCA laws, the access agreement, a lot of things on the VOLANs, the noise reporting, and working closely with the airport noise office from the county. So he does field a lot of questions and does some research to get further answers and for clarifications for specific community members as well as community groups as well. There's been a lot of requests of support for his services there. So those,
how many hours per month is the 5,000? Does that?
The 5,000 is for 25 hours.
25 hours.
Yeah.
So he's producing 25 hours of work for the city staff and responding to members of the community.
Right, and typically I would say, I think we looked and it was an average about 10 additional hours per month. It could be 10 to 20 hours more than that per month. And so if you add all that together, we're looking more at like 35 to 40 hours or so per month. And he estimates probably 25 to 50% of his time are on addressing the community and community requests.
And how does that come to pass? How does a community member talk to Mr. Edwards?
Well, he is under contract with us, and we are mindful of the resources and hours spent on this. So requests need to be handled through either myself or primarily with our deputy city manager, Tara.
Do you field all requests?
Right. Our first line is with the deputy city manager. And then, as appropriate, any consultant use.
Are members of the community calling him directly?
We do have those that happen. He's been in the community for a long time. He has established relationships with several of the community groups, knows many of the community members, and has worked with them over the years, and they're familiar with him. So that I do think there are many times where community members and community groups, the county and other entities will go to him as a first step.
Now, Mr. Edwards is a lawyer, correct?
Correct.
Is he serving in a legal capacity to the
Not
city?
in a legal capacity for us, that our legal matters related are through Mr. Harp's office.
And the questions that the community is asking him are, would you describe or characterize them, please?
Well, they're pretty wide-ranging. They'll be from very specific requests or concerns about a specific plane overhead that's flown through, to questions about what can and can't be done in terms of actions against the FAA or against the county, things of that nature. And there is a lot on that of making sure getting more facts and education out there to the community about what is and isn't allowed under the ANCA, the federal laws, what's around our settlement agreement, and what can and can't be done, and things of that nature.
Well, let me ask this way. Is any member of the staff capable of answering these questions?
So our primary staff that we have that's addressing airport matters is Tara Finnegan, our deputy city manager, and then secondary, and then I would also say our city attorney there, and then myself. So we have some of the answers, and I would certainly say Tara has come a long way in the time period over the last, I would say, two years in getting up to speed. But in terms of the breadth and experience and the direct involvement with these agreements, and a lot of the work that's been done on the aviation and all that historical knowledge, Tom is pretty instrumental in that aspect.
Are you aware of anybody else in the community that has his subject matter expertise?
No, I do not.
Okay, so if Mr. Edwards were not available to us, what would we do?
We would have to rebuild that kind of knowledge base and that I think we'd have to rebuild that kind of experience and knowledge base to get up to speed to that, which would take quite a bit of time to do.
Okay, thank you for all those answers. Mr. Avery.
Yeah, I've heard nothing but good things about Mr. Edwards, but nonetheless, my colleague, Mr. Muldoon's comments, I think, are to me worthy of taking note in terms of just a contract that kind of keeps going on and on. I don't think there's anything wrong with reviewing it and taking a look. This has taken me by surprise a little bit, but nonetheless, I think you've provided some background that's very helpful. But maybe we might take some time just to get some cold comfort, all of us, and sort of more of a review or some kind of a report. And I think we're in general aware of what he does, and I assume that the billing is pretty detailed, I would think, for all the time spent and.
Yes, we get a detailed breakdown in each of the billing statements.
Yeah, but we've never really reviewed the whole thing, probably in the time that's gone on. So I don't know if the council might be interested in
we can
taking a pause and maybe addressing this in another meeting. And
we can certainly put together a more detailed report of his activity, particularly over the last year in doing that.
Yeah.
I will note that this contract expires, I want to say, at the end of this month.
Right.
So to that extent, we would stop work with Tom then.
Maybe we could extend it or something. I don't know. And it just seems to me that it'd be great for the council, but also the public, because I know he interacts with a lot of the public, and it would be good to, at the very least, sort of give everybody an overview and answer the question. It is a considerable amount of money, but I do regard him as an expert. But it's tough to get a grasp of everything he does, but it seems like it's a lot.
Yes.
Yeah, obviously, there's, especially now in the last couple of years, there's an awful lot of interest in the airport and their issues. So
correct. And we've also had a changeover on the staff side to with previously with having Dave Kiff as
Right.
city manager and the extensive knowledge that he built over the years on this specific
Right.
area where he's now no longer with us. So,
Yeah.
not here. I mean, yeah.
You're here.
Yeah.
Okay.
He did not pass away. I guess that's it.
Thank
But
you.
yeah, so we can certainly work to provide more information, though.
Yeah, I would.
I'll also note that the contract is just for 1 year.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I guess I'm in favor, but I would like to see, you know, before this comes up, I think we should get, you know, a pretty solid report on the activities and an explanation on the cost overages and all that. Be good to see. So, thank you.
Well, Mr. Avery, are you suggesting that we should let his contract lapse?
No, I'm not. I don't think that's appropriate. I sort of feel like I think he deserved and we deserve and the community deserve sort of an update.
But we should continue.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that I would agree with that. Let me just ask one other question. When Mr. Edwards reaches his allotted or contracted hours, does he contact you before he goes over that contracted amount?
Yes, he works directly with our deputy city manager.
Okay. Any other questions up here? Let's go out to the public. Please come forward.
Mayor Dixon and members of the council, my name is Jim Mosier. And like the comments you've heard from the council members, I hope you don't take this as a personal attack on Mr. Edwards. It's not meant to be that way. But I believe this contract was awarded rather casually back in 2008 at a time when technically the city council policy at that time would have required a request for qualifications and a consideration of at least 3 candidates to see if there might be somebody else who could provide at that time the same service as well or better and perhaps at lower cost. And instead we've just been kind of renewing it to where the dollar amount is up to where even now you would think there should be a request for qualifications if this is a job that we need. Yet it's become so routine and entitlement that it's actually being presented to you without seeing the full contract or in particular even the scope of services of what he's being asked to do. And part of the current hours, as I understand, is he's actually asked just when somebody has a noise complaint to plot up a flight track for them and show it to them where the plane flew, whether it agrees with their observation or not. That seems to me like something an entry-level employee could be trained to do in a very short time. It's not all that technical. And in fact, a community member can do it on their own with the software that the airport provides. And then in addition to that, since 2008, and especially in the last few years, in a way that the public and I think the council members are not totally aware of, the staff the airport operation, as I understand it, is not limited just to the few staff members we heard, but we have an array of consultants that staff has hired with at dollar amounts that are below the threshold that they have to come to the council for public relations, for legal work, for I don't know what all. And kind of following up on Councilman Avery's comment, I would suggest, and I kind of suggested to the Aviation Committee at their meeting last night, perhaps you should encourage the Aviation Committee to look at what this whole array of contracts we have connected with airport issues is, and to see if this contract even fits in logically to the others. It could well be overlapping, duplicating what other people are doing. Maybe they're doing it cheaper or better, I don't know. I think somebody has to look at that whole picture and see how this fits in before you know what to do with this. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have another speaker, please?
Mayor Dixon and members, my name's Lorian Petrie, and I would like to comment again on this same item 8. And it's simply because last night at the Aviation Committee meeting, which I thought was excellent, Aaron Harp went through the Brown Act and a lot about how to meet transparency, all kinds of issues that the council is very aware of, and they know that the community is very aware of. And when we have a contract such as this, and it's not to say anything about Tom Edwards, I've worked with him, he's a very good guy, but it's just a situation where I'm looking at the qualifications, the request for qualifications. We do it for everything else. Why would we make an exception? I don't understand it. And I know that he is an attorney, obviously past the bar, hopefully, and intelligent, but is he an aviation attorney? Is he an expert in this field? Is there someone who really brings something to the table that we're unaware of because we haven't gone out through this process? And I know for you as city manager stepping into this role, it is nice to have people who have, you know, some historic background in issues. However, there comes a time when you get up on your own 2 feet and you go, okay, I think we need to move on and get the right people in place. And I think that maybe we have the right person, and I wonder even about going with a month-to-month contract instead of saying not to exceed $272,000, which is what this states, that we would go and say, you know what? We have to get through the right process in order to get the right person. It worries me at the council level that we're not doing it the right way. So the other thing that happened last night at the Aviation Committee meeting, and I know it's something that Tom does, is he reports on all the flights. Guess who's going to be doing that now on a daily and monthly basis? John Wayne Airport itself. That's a huge part of his job. It's now going to be available to us all for this much money. So I just wonder, what are we getting for the dollars we're spending, and are we getting the expertise that we really need? That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comments? Please come forward on this item, number 8, on the consent calendar. Seeing none, we'll bring it back here. All right, we have a motion? Oh, Mr. Muldoon.
Who else was considered for this contract?
This is an extension of an existing contract, so there was no other consideration for this specific service here.
No other pilots, no other people with airport experience?
We did do an RFP, gosh, how long ago was that now? January, February of this year for additional aviation expertise.
And who was that?
So we did an RFP process through that, and through that we did select, excuse me, a consultant. Aero Magnus is a consulting firm whose principal is a current active pilot, David Wilson.
And what are his credentials?
He is currently a commercial pilot for JetBlue. And has done consulting and aviation-specific technical aviation work through his previous background, I want to say in the military, and doing some base closure and work there with communities through that type of transition.
So he's been more than a passenger on a plane?
He has been more than a passenger on a plane.
It's safe to assume Mr. Edwards has probably been a passenger on a plane somewhere, correct?
I'm going to make that assumption as well.
But he has no aviation experience, correct? We'll tell you, why don't we hear from him? Would Mr. Edwards please come forward? Oh, I'm sorry, he's not here. Probably because he expects to get this contract every year in perpetuity because of former mayor and councilman from Newport Beach. This is going to be roughly $1 million. So if you want to vote for this nonsense to continue, it's fine. But I'm telling you, he's not an expert. I've had pilots tell me point blank he doesn't know what he's talking about. I've had residents tell me he's been rude to them, and I'm not going to support this kind of contract.
All right, any other comments up here? And we have a motion, Mr. Herdman, seconded by Ms. Brenner. Let's vote. Were you going to say something, Mayor? No.
Councilmember Avery. With council members Avery, Duffield, and Muldoon voting no, the motion carries 4-3.
All right, Madam Clerk.
Public comments are invited on non-agenda items generally considered to be within the subject matter jurisdiction of the City Council. Speakers must limit comments to 3 minutes. Before speaking, please state your name for the record.
Are there any public comments on non-agenda items? Please come forward.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, council members and residents of Newport Beach. Thank you for allowing me the opportunity to speak tonight. My name is Alexander Gonzalez, and I am a field representative for the office of Congressman Harley Ruda. It is a pleasure to speak to you all. I'm excited to return to this podium to introduce myself as a resource and liaison between the congressional office and residents. As a former resident of Newport Beach for 13 years, I attended Newport Harbor High School and was shaped by my experiences living, working, and learning alongside many other residents. As a teenager, I worked on the city's environmental challenges, became a police explorer, and created many fond memories throughout the city. I want to thank the residents of Newport Beach for welcoming me into the community and making a lasting impact on my life all those years ago. After 11 years away, including 6 years in the U.S. Navy, I feel honored to serve this community once again and to give back to my neighbors and friends. Part of my duties are to represent the office and advocate for the city of Newport Beach and our constituents who reside here. Please do not hesitate to reach out to our office if you have any questions or comments you would like to relate to the Congress member. Additionally, we recently released our 6-month report, which can be found on our website. In the past 6 months, we have introduced 28 measures, passed 16 of those, co-sponsored nearly 280 measures, 60% of them bipartisan, and chaired 5 hearings as chair of the Oversight Subcommittee on the Environment. The Congressman has also brought over $19 million in grants and $170,000 worth of constituent savings. We're so excited to continue working with you. And again, my name is Alexander Gonzalez, and I will be your official liaison to our office. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gonzalez. Could you just clarify now, Ms. Laura Oatman, if we needed something, we would be calling her, but now we call you?
No, I'm just simply introducing myself as another liaison for the office.
Okay. Thank you. Yes. Well, thank you very much and welcome. Welcome back.
Thank you.
Public comment, please come forward.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, council members. My name is Rachel Curry, and I am a field representative from the Office of Assemblywoman Cotty Petrie Norris. I just wanted to give you a few updates from our office, as well as start off with congratulating you again on the opening of the Costa Mesa Library and Fire Station number 5. And also wanted to let you know that the first of the Assemblywoman's bills has been passed and signed by the Governor of California. That's Assembly Bill 608 regarding processory interests, the low-value ordinance exemption. We want to, again, thank the sponsor, the California Assessors Association, as well as some of our supporters, including the California Taxpayers Association, the Orange County Assessor, and the Orange County Business Council. And additionally, want to let you know that we're very proud of this bill. Its aim is to considerably reduce the burden of the taxpayers utilizing processory interests and increasing government efficiency. Second, this Friday we are hosting a senior scam stopper seminar with the Contractors State Licensing Board of California. Unfortunately, 1 in 5 seniors is a victim of fraud. Seniors are the most targeted group for fraud schemes, and new scams are developing all the time. So this seminar is being brought to us from the Capitol, from experts in the field to help our seniors in our community and their families safeguard their futures, to give them the tools to avoid these scams. And that will be happening this Friday at 10 a.m. in your neighboring city of Costa Mesa. We have a few others planned throughout the rest of the year, and more information will be coming to you about those as well. And lastly, I wanted to let you all know and let the community know that the Assemblywoman is developing advisory boards to help her gain even more community input. And she is forming a advisory council on climate change and sea level rise, an education advisory council, a small business and economic development advisory council, and a military veterans advisory council. And we hope that you will look into that and hopefully share with your constituents in the city more information about that, as well as anyone else who's interested. The applications are open and on our website, and we hope everyone from the community will look into that and hopefully apply. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. Any other public comments on non-agenda items? Please come forward.
Hi there, council members. My name is Michael Voorhees. I'm a resident of the Lido Sands community in West Newport. And I just want to bring up a neighborhood issue that's come up the last probably 6 months or so. There's a company called Saritz Properties that bought the four houses, duplexes on River right across from our house. I've lived there for 23 years. Love the neighborhood. Even though it's in West Newport, it has a real family feel to it. And first they turned them into duplexes, and now they're vacation rentals. And I get the vacation rentals in Newport. It's always been that way on the beach, and it's great, and people come for the summers, and it's awesome. But 3 streets back in a neighborhood area on River that can't handle there's literally 16 passenger vans full of kids and people and teams coming in and out of there every 2-3 days. It's completely turned our neighborhood into a fraternity row. And they have 10 people, they get 10 kids on the bottom and 10 in the top. That's 20 people per house, 4 houses in a row directly across from my house. And it's literally loud music. There's trash cans are out all the time because and then the cleaners are coming in and out, and people are coming and going. And it's not the vacationers' fault. They don't know. They're just coming to have a great time. But is there some kind of a review board or somewhere I can go to show pictures? And like my wife was so upset one time, she called the cops, and then they came and they hassled the guys that were there. And there was a basketball team there, and then we had 16 hours straight of rap music all day long. And it's really not the vacationer's fault. It really isn't. But there has to be some kind of rules for this particular neighborhood that this cannot continue. It's turned West Newport into West Covina. It's horrible. Do you have anywhere I can go or any?
When you conclude your comments, I'll speak. So are you? I mean, that's fine. Are you finished?
Yeah. I'd like to see somehow if we could review it, or if there's an occupancy issue. There's no parking there for all those vans, and they're coming and going, and they're blocking the sidewalk, and we don't want to call the cops and give everyone tickets and all that. We just want to have some kind of civility to the issue.
We do have rules. Why don't you have a seat? Or Mr. Georges, would you mind talking with this gentleman offline, and he could tell you about the process, the address. Make sure you give him the address on River Avenue, because we'll see if they have a legitimate, real permit to operate a short-term rental, and that sets a lot of things in motion. So Mr. Georges will take that information.
Okay.
We do have a process.
Thank you very much.
All right, very good. He's standing over here on the side. Thank you very much. Any other public comments on non-agenda items? Here comes Max.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, members of the City Council, Mayor Pro Tem. I wanted to speak about tonight something that I think I stated my name. Yeah, Max Johnson, 24-year resident of Newport Beach, District 1 on the Balboa Peninsula. Last night, after attending both the Homelessness Task Force Committee meeting as well as the Aviation Committee meeting, I made it probably 4 or 5, maybe 6 to 7 minutes down on the peninsula before coming past the bars, and just I don't know, probably 5 to 10 minutes prior to that, a boy, or I think 2 boys, were hit at the crosswalk in front of 7-Eleven, and I was right there before the their first two responding PD units arrived on scene, and just kind of pulled to the side of the road and then started speaking to a lot of the residents around in that area. But this is something that has happened in the past before, and so tonight I just wanted to ask to see if council can put forth staff recommendation to reconsider potentially putting some lights at the crosswalks there. I know Dave has talked about in the past there were studies to look at putting lights in the crosswalks, but I think that they were talking about lights on the ground, not in the crosswalks like at Lido Village. I know Diane has mentioned in the past, you tell people to press the button when you're passing, and I know whenever I'm in Lido Village, I do myself, but I have to say constantly going up and down the peninsula every day, especially at night and on the weekends, the amount of people that aren't even using the crosswalks, it's really hard to see people. And from the bars, group of gals without shoes, holding the shoes and running across the street, and guys and all these, groups constantly kind of running across, it's really hard to see people. So at night, I know how significant it would help the drivers and residents to see people using the crosswalks. And also just in that vicinity, it's hard to see oncoming traffic when you're a pedestrian, kind of that corner, and also for drivers too. So I'd like to see council to look into this and just ask city staff maybe the recommendation to reconsider putting lights in the crosswalks in those areas, and maybe even polling how many incidents we've had. But I do know that they sent, I think, both those boys to the ER last night, so I'm hoping that they're okay. Wasn't sure if they're residents or visitors, but it was interesting to just hear the residents that live right there, how many times they've said they've reached out to staff via Instagram or website and just said this is something that I think a lot of us would like to see. So just wanted to mention that tonight.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Max. David, where's Dave Webb? I just saw him. Just curiously, the status of phase 2 of our crosswalk improvement program, when is that scheduled to begin?
Phase 2 is where we were going to do some extra crosswalks and bulb outs at 26th and 28th Street, and I know the preliminary design is underway now, so as soon as we can get that underway, we'll start that project.
So we might want to look again, if I get some more details. I know what Max is talking about. If you're familiar with the peninsula, you drive very slowly at night, and even though the new crosswalks that have been restriped and they're very bold and bright white, people who are unfamiliar, or if they're not even in the crosswalk, that's even more problematic. But anyway, if you take note of that.
And I'll have staff look at the lighting level near
Yes.
the intersections. It might be a little dim. We'll take a look at that.
Very good. Mr. Avery, did you want to make a comment?
Yeah, I will. I came upon that a few minutes after that happened, and I was headed westbound, and the sun was just going down. It was just, so you're going against that sun off the peninsula, and it's nearly impossible to see in front of you. You have to go very carefully. And of course, that spot is, as Max said, is really a difficult place because everyone's exiting off the beach, and it's just, but there was a lot of personnel on site. I mean, there must have been 10 units, and yeah, it was.
Was that at 18th or 19th Street or 20th?
Right at the 7-Eleven there, yeah, right at 20th. Thank you. Sorry.
Thank you. Any other public comments on non-agenda items? Please come forward. Okay, seeing none, we'll go into our first public hearing for our first item, drinking water quality report on public health care goals. So, Mr. Mark Vikoyevich.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and Council members. We have a brief staff report. Oftentimes we talk about water quality in terms of the ocean and our beaches, ocean, and a harbor, but this water quality is in particular regarding drinking water quality too. With me tonight I have Tuan Van, who is our water quality coordinator as well too. So all of our drinking water meets state and federal drinking water standards, and we are required to prepare an annual report, and in addition to that, every 3 years we have to do a public hearing to discuss the public health goals and the report, and that's why we're here tonight. So you may recall receiving this flyer, this water quality report. It's a little booklet that was sent to every single water customer in the city, and that outlines all of the water quality for drinking water quality last year. But what we're here to talk about today is the comparison of our water quality in terms of public health goals, which are set by California EPA, and also, and if the Cal EPA doesn't have a standard, then it refers to a standard that the feds have. And unlike maximum contaminant levels, so those are the maximum, these are non-enforceable and they're not required to be met, but they are things to look at. In the staff report, in the attachment is basically a summary of all the things that have been detected over the last 3 years. And again, as you can note there too, you have goals, you have detections, and then you have the legal maximums. And all of our water quality has been tested, and over the last 3 years, we've conducted 4,700 different water quality tests on our drinking water, have all met the legal standards. The recommendation tonight is there are other treatment methods that could further reduce, constituents and go towards these public health goals. But basically, there's also causes and effects and other consequences associated with that. And as stated in the report, our recommendation is no further action for this. And tonight, we ask you to conduct a public hearing and receive and file any comments on the staff report, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Are there any comments, Mr. Herdman?
No.
No?
No.
Okay, I thought you were reaching for the microphone. Any comments up here? All right. Why don't we go to public comment? Any public comment?
Mayor Dixon, members of the council, my name is Jim Mosier. First, I wanted to point out these numbers were on that little card that was mailed to the water customers of Newport Beach, but the card didn't actually point out that any of these exceedances were happening. And I think the reason for the hearing tonight is not the 3-year requirement so much as that there were some things that exceeded these goals. And so, as we've heard, the water meets the standards, but it has some problem with these. I don't know if the hearing tonight will cause people to be concerned about drinking the water in Newport Beach. So I think it would be, I don't know if the staff is prepared to do this or not, but I think it would be useful to compare the amount of this contamination that is in our drinking water that comes out of the tap to what the levels would be if you went to a supermarket and bought a bottle of water in a plastic container. Is this water better or worse than that? I think that would be useful to know. My suspicion is some of that water that you would pay a lot for at the market actually has more contaminants in it than this, which we're required to report on at a public hearing, but I do not know. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comments? Seeing none, close the public hearing. We'll bring it back up here. Any comments? Do we have safe water, Mr. Vukovic?
Yes, absolutely.
And you would drink it?
Every day.
Okay.
Every day. And, we have all of these safeguards in place. And it's just worth mentioning, too, that, we do all of these testings, the tests, and we have all of these locations that we test, and we have an independent laboratory company that comes and tests all of these things. And all of this information is submitted to the state for all of our reporting and guidelines. And we have some great water, especially in particular our groundwater is some of the best out there coming from Fountain Valley.
All right, Mr. Avery.
Yeah, I love that groundwater, and I drink it all the time. Thank you.
I do too.
I'd like to move that we receive and file the City of Newport Beach 2019 Drinking Water Quality Report.
Do we have a second? All right, we have a motion by Mr. Herdman, second by the Mayor Pro Tem. Let's vote.
Motion carries unanimously, 7-0.
All right, under current business, an employment agreement with Jeff Boyles, our new fire chief. And we are here to consider the proposal and then authorize the city manager to execute this agreement. So, city manager, do you have a comment?
I do. Just briefly. But after, I'm very pleased to be presenting on this report. After a national recruitment and a very competitive selection process, I'm very pleased to be recommending for council to authorize me to execute an employment agreement between the city and Jeff Boyles for fire chief services. And I'm going to read from my comments because state law requires an oral report regarding the proposed terms of the employment agreement. So I'm just going to run through those hopefully pretty quickly here. The proposed agreement calls for an initial term of 2 years with automatic one-year term extensions unless the city exercises a non-renewal clause. The initial annual base salary of $235,527 will be adjusted thereafter by the lesser of cost of living increases received by the Fire Management Association or the cost of living as defined by Government Code Section 3511.1. The fire chief should expect to receive annual performance evaluations on or about the anniversary date of the effective date of the employment agreement. The agreement also ties the fire chief's employee retirement contributions to the same contributions made by the members of the Fire Management Association. And those have been set currently for the next few years. Currently, the employee contribution is 12.5%, and that will increase to 13% in July 2020, and then 13.5% in July 2021. So his increases for his retirement plan will increase there accordingly. The fire chief will also be responsible for any costs or contributions associated with his participation in the Laguna supplemental pension fund that we have for our key and management employees and a couple other groups. The current contribution is 2.92% and is expected to increase to 3.22 in January 2020 and 3.54 in January 2021. Additionally, the proposed employment agreement provides for an annual uniform allowance of $1,519 and a maximum reimbursement for an annual executive physical of $1,000. If terminated without cause, the city will pay the fire chief 6 months base salary plus medical benefits if applicable. Flex leave will accrue at the rate of 9.69 hours per pay period. The other benefits will be provided in the same manner as received by other employees covered by the Key and Management Compensation Plan, including medical, dental, and vision insurance, disability coverage, life insurance, retiree health savings, and cafeteria allowance. So those are the terms of the agreement for salary and compensation. And I just want to say it was a very competitive process, as I mentioned before, and I really think we have a great fire chief lined up to be beginning and really be up and running very quickly, and very excited to be working together and having him as part of our executive team for the city.
Oh, very good. Mr. Avery.
I recommend approval.
Ms. Brenner seconds that approval. All right. Any other comments? We'll go out to the public. Any public comments?
Mayor Dixon and members of the council, my name is Jim Mosier. From what little I know of Mr. Boyles, he's an excellent candidate, and I look forward to having him as my fire chief. However, in this city of transparency, I wonder if the taxpayers could know how many people applied for this position and how many were interviewed. Thank you.
Thank you. And while maybe Ms. Leung, why don't you, if you could be so kind to answer Mr. Mosher's question. And in addition, you might want to talk about just the process. There were several review boards or...
Sure. I don't have the exact number in front of me. I'm trying to remember the binder that I went through of all the applicants. And I want to say it's in the 30 to 40 range that I reviewed after initial screening. And then there were approximately 6 to 8 candidates that went through an extensive interview process in which we had 3 different panels, one including a specific expertise with neighboring fire chiefs on the panel. We had one with our executive team members, and also one that included some members of our civil service board on that panel as well. There was also a written exercise that all the finalists were required to submit their responses to looking at a potential budget issue, and then presenting that to one of the panels as well. And so there were ratings from all of those. Oh, I would also add there was actually another panel of the labor associations associated to fire management, and lifeguards, who also were part of a panel too. So all of those provided their assessments and or ratings to me. So that it was an all-day process that candidates went through, and Mr. Boyles did very well through all four of those panels and came forward with very strong recommendations.
Oh, very good. Mr. O'Neill, Mayor Pro Tem.
Yeah, just a real quick story. Last year, as a tune-up for this process, Jeff had applied in with another city to see how it would go, and no surprise to any of us, he made it into the finals. And it was funny because I was at an event on a morning, and the president of the Fire Association came up and said, "Listen, just so you know, this has happened, and we need you to talk him out of doing that." And I said, "Well, that's interesting. I'll make sure I talk to our city manager about that." So I was going to a meeting afterward, and after the meeting, Dave Kiff pulled me aside and said, "Will, just so you know, this is happening. We need you to talk him out of it." So I had coffee with Jeff after that, and we talked for quite some time. And I reminded him the charter prohibits council members from lobbying on his behalf, but that I would hope that he'd consider staying. And I also said, but make the right call for you and your family. Just want to say, Jeff, I'm glad that the right call for you and your family is protecting our families up here. So I look forward to serving with you as fire chief for years to come. So thank you for sticking around.
I'd like to echo that as well. We're very pleased with our new fire chief and greatly honored, and he's been, his entire career virtually has been, all but 2 years has been, I think, with the city of Newport Beach. And we're very proud to have you rise through the ranks. I think that's an excellent example of leadership up the career ladder and in this organization, and you're a role model to your colleagues. So we're very proud to wish you well, Mr. Chief. Mr. Herdman.
So therefore, I will move approval of his employment contract agreement.
All right.
Did Brad already do that?
You seconded it.
All right.
All right.
You seconded it.
And did I do public comments? Yes. So I think we're voting now. Thank you.
Congratulations. The motion carries 7-0.
All right. The next item is Newport Beach and Company Destination Business Plan Supplement. Visit Newport Beach Fiscal Year 2019-20 Budget Update and the Tourism Business Improvement District Fiscal Year 2019-20 Annual Report and Budget Update. Mr. Sherwin and
Mayor.
Ms. Snavely,
Yes.
welcome.
Mayor Dixon, members of the City Council, it's a pleasure and an honor to be with you tonight. And also want to congratulate Chief Boyles. As you know, our visitors depend on paramedics, firefighters, and especially our lifeguards, and we look forward to working with you and partnering with you as part of our larger hospitality community. Before I get started, I want to hand the podium over to our board chair and Citizen of the Year, Debbie Snavely.
Thank you, Gary. Good evening, Mayor Dixon and members of the City Council. I am Debbie Snavely, General Manager of the Newport Beach Marriott Hotel and Spa and Chairperson of Newport Beach and Company and Visit Newport Beach. First, let me say how honored I am to work in this city and to have such a wonderful City Council and staff to work with in bringing more business to Newport Beach. Your support means everything to the hospitality community, and it is not ever taken for granted. I've had the privilege to serve on this board now for more than 10 years and be on its executive committee most of that time. We have watched this organization grow, develop, and deliver real and meaningful financial results for this city. Let me assure you that our board and this organization is transparent in its governance and finances. While we were established as a private nonprofit, we also share our finances and audits with our boards, which includes a City Council appointee representative on our executive committee and a city staff member who sits on our board of directors. They receive detailed reports on our finances and the results of all of our marketing programs. I think you are all aware that our executive committee meets nearly every month, and we watch the budget and monitor the organization's programming. Our board is committed and dedicated, and in front of you, you can see the people who serve as our volunteer leaders. Today, we have several of our executive committee members here with us. They are Homer Bludow, former city manager, Linda Beimfor, Hornblower Cruises and Events, and Candy Bisconte, Access Destination Services. As you can see from our board's company logos, we have some of the county's finest business leaders serving with us, including even the Angels. All of them attend our meetings, offer insight and counsel, and are valuable partners in promoting the city. Our president, Gary Sherwin, will review with you the results of our work this year, which are frankly beyond extraordinary. But before Gary comes up, please let me reinforce this point. As amazing as Newport Beach is, as magnificent as its beauty and attractions are, this city does not sell itself. No successful city or business thrives without a sustained and aggressive marketing program. Our hotels are wonderful, but we are facing threats nationally and also from nearby cities such as Huntington Beach and Irvine, which have opened new hotel products that give us formidable challenges and have captured meetings businesses away from us. Even Dana Point in a few years will be a very competitive destination to us once their harbor and new hotels come on board. We are still a superb city and I believe one of the finest communities in the world. But we cannot prosper without an aggressive effort to tell our story and bring quality business. And that's what Newport Beach & Company does. You will see in just a few minutes how important this organization is to our industry's financial well-being and how it is not such a secret weapon in competing against all these neighboring communities. We are a people-driven business, and it is our people who make us successful. As someone who has worked with organizations like this in other cities, Newport Beach & Company is truly best in class. Please know that your trust in this organization is well placed, and today you will see evidence of that, including some amazing numbers on the TOT growth year over year. Thank you again for your support, your superb stewardship of this city, and great public-private partnership. Let me now bring up Gary Sherwin.
Thank you, Debbie, and I also want to thank our volunteer leadership that put in a lot of hours working with us, looking at our finances, looking at their governance, looking at our programming, making sure that we can give only the very best for this city. Now, I get very enthusiastic when I come to speak with you because I am your champion, I am your supporter. I'm the person who gets the great privilege of being able to tell this city's story to the world. So I'm going to keep it to the 20 minutes that I've been confined to, but sometimes I forgive my enthusiasm. Now, if you recall, under our contract, we present to you a 2-year marketing plan and budget, and we gave that to you last year, which was approved. So this year, we have submitted to you what we call our supplemental plan or our addendum that really is just about any changes that we've seen in the market or any changes that we're going to have in our programming that we've learned or adapted to since we presented to you the program earlier. So let me get right to it, and I'll give you sort of first an environmental scan of what is happening out there in the world, and particularly as it pertains to Newport Beach. So here in California, the tourism industry is still very robust. Over 360 million visitor trips were undertaken in the last previous 2 years. The tourism industry in California is a $140 billion industry, over 11 billion, almost $12 billion in state and local taxes are generated from it. The over 1.2 million citizens are employed in our business. And one of the more interesting takeaways, I'm going to show you a slide here in just a moment, our international business as a state continues to be relatively strong given a lot of volatility that is happening out there in the national marketplace. Here's what's happening pertaining to California. And you'll see that some of these numbers, particularly in the United Kingdom, which is facing some challenges with Brexit, is still up, although that growth is slowing. The Middle East business continues to be robust, and that is important for us here in Newport Beach because we do depend on the Middle East business. Some of those families that usually come and stay for 30 days are getting a little bit smaller, but they seem to have rebounded from some of the national policies that took effect a couple of years ago. And even China with the trade war, although that growth is slowing too, it is continuing to be in a growth sector. You'll see some of the two markets, South America and Hong Kong, seem to be contracting. Right now, we do see continued growth in the international sector despite some formidable headwinds. Here's what's happening in Newport Beach, and I think this is a cause for celebration. We took all of the room rates in our city and did an average compared to all the other cities in the county, and you can see that we fare pretty well when it comes to average daily rate, 62% higher than the county average as a whole. And that has continued to grow, and you can even see over the last couple of years, we've even widened that difference. And that's due to our hotels really pushing rate, and you'll see even occupancy has flattened out a little bit. Rate has continued to grow. To that end, you'll see here two measurements. ADR, the average daily rate, as I mentioned, is continuing to grow. Occupancy has declined slightly, and really that is due to the fact that we had two hotels that were out for renovation for really almost since 2015, and that is the Renaissance, which was formerly the Fairmont, and now the new Hyatt John Wayne. Both hotels are now coming fully online. We expect to see that trend line begin to change the other direction. This slide I added really at the request of Mayor Dixon. She wanted to kind of know, how do we stand when it comes to overall TOT, and then how do you factor on T-bids, because most cities now in California have embraced T-bids. And you can kind of see where we stand, and we are below market in a lot of areas. Anaheim, you'll see, is over 17%. Huntington Beach just took up their T-bid. They're now up over 14%. You'll see some of the other bigger cities, even Santa Monica, San Francisco. Some of these are now getting upwards past 14, 15, 16, 17%. So even with the combined 3% T-bid and the 10% TOT, we are still very much in a competitive situation. And it's a little bit of a false argument because, frankly, we don't have a lot of people who choose destinations because of the city's room tax rate, unless it's truly egregious, and then people tend to stay away. So I think that's part of why you've been seeing some creep here on some TOT and T-bid rates. Hasn't really affected market share in these cities, but it's important to note some of those key discrepancies. And I'll be happy to, of course, give you this deck, and you can look at it a little bit closer later on. We always like to kind of also talk about what does tourism mean to our residents, because we know that right around now, when it gets busy and the streets get busy and traffic gets a little bit impacted, and we love having the trolley, but we also want to say that tourism really does have a meaningful financial benefit for our residents. And so we employed an economist to take a look at this, and we said, if tourism wasn't here, how would that impact a resident's taxes in this city? Over $1,100 in additional taxes would have to be given by every resident in order to continue the high quality of government services that you currently have. And if you love the restaurants, you love the stores, you love our quality of life, and you take all that money that comes from outside into the community, each household would have to spend almost $44,000 just to sustain the kind of life that we so are privileged to enjoy here in Newport Beach. So let me first talk about our T-bid and what that does, which is our group sales. So the T-bid, as you recall, is the 3% on 9 different hotel properties, which also happens to include Newport Dunes. And that began 10 years ago. And that T-bid, of course, is entirely supported by those hotels. There's no public tax dollars. This is an assessment. These are different from tax dollars. So these are all the funds from this are entirely coming from the private sector. That's why we are a true public-private partnership. In the last year, our group sales team had a goal of 96,000 group room nights. These are meetings and conventions that we have booked into the city of Newport Beach. This team broke the record this year, amazingly. They came in at over 111,000 room nights. Now, you think about Newport Beach only has an inventory of about 3,000 rooms. So know that these group rooms have a big impact in the occupancy of this city. You could see out of the groups, there were 421 total bookings. A little over half of them were brand new groups that had never met in Newport Beach before. The others were repeat business groups maybe had met, they had gone somewhere else, we brought them back. And you can see the average rate is over $200 a night. And the peak room night, which is the peak number of nights that they stay, is about 81. So really great news on that front. And to give you an idea of sort of the historical trends of what this group has done, you could see they have continued to push the envelope. The T-bid is governed by the assessed businesses, meaning the board of the T-bid are the hotels themselves. They help us set the goal, and they sign off on every single contract that we count as towards a booking. So these numbers are all verified and supported by the hotels. So you can see where we've continued to really kind of push our production. And this city, as much as it is dependent on leisure guests, the fact is most of the hotels need group business. They need meetings and conventions in order to pay the bills. So this part of our business is very, very important. Let me give you a historical review here because this is the 10 years of the T-bid. And you can see we began in May 2009. The T-bid generated almost 1.2 million, and it has continued to grow. And about 5 years later, the hotel said this is working so well, let's take it from 2 to 3%. The Island Hotel joined, the Dunes joined, and you saw some real growth in that T-bid budget. But I think the important one here is at the bottom, and that is that the T-bid, since its creation, has brought in nearly 600,000 group room nights into the city of Newport Beach that they would not have had this T-bid not been there. And that brings in almost $150 million in revenue directly to the hotels, but also almost $390 million into the city. That includes restaurants, that includes retail, that includes attractions, all the other spend that these groups bring and leave as a positive imprint. You can see on overall, so it was about $28 million in total T-bid revenue, and you can see that the numbers pencil out with the return on investment. That is very, very impressive. I do want to acknowledge a couple people, though, and because the T-bid group, again, there are 9 properties that fund this and generate these funds, but we also have 9 full-time staff people on our team that are supported by the funds of the T-bid. You don't see them very often. You see our marketing people all the time, but these are people who have devoted their professional lives to getting on the road, knocking on doors, and bringing group business into Newport Beach. So you probably are not familiar with these people, but they work very hard for you every day. And we have a few of them with us. We have 2 of our sales managers. Lori Hoy, will you please stand up? And Michelle Devine, who is with us. And of course, the leader of all of this, who has helped make this possible, is a person who's been with us now for close to 17 years, our Senior Vice President of Group Sales, Michelle Donahue. And will you please join me in giving them a hand for this really phenomenal return? So one of the things that this group has also been working on is a partnership with Newport, Rhode Island. If you came to our annual dinner last year, you probably saw the representatives there. We are now cross-promoting for group purposes, Newport, Rhode Island and Newport Beach. We work with their sales team. They work with us. We did an event earlier this year in New York City. We brought key meeting planners in. They were able to learn about both destinations. We're very complementary, and we share a lot of the same demographics. and it was terrific, and we're going to be doing some more work with the Newport, Rhode Island folks in Washington, D.C. later this year. So now let me get into leisure marketing. So leisure marketing, this is supported by TOT dollars, and these are efforts that we have to bring what I call people by the each to Newport Beach. Now, we are very careful about what we take credit for. So when we say we're bringing in visitors, we don't do a guess at how many people looked at our website and then logged onto the Marriott website and ended up booking. What we tend to measure are specific campaigns that we have put together, and we are able to measure from point of promotion to the point of actual booking completion. So these are what we call incremental room nights. And so what we do is during off periods when the city really needs some help, which is usually in the winter, and now even at the end of August because school goes back so fast, we launch specific campaigns in markets and then track how many bookings that we get out of it. And over the last 5 years, we've been able to measure that. You'll see the number for this year is a little bit lower because we are still waiting for the report from our third-party consultant who does all of the number crunching for us. So we expect that number from 2018-19 to go up higher than 37,000, but it won't be until next month. But you can see that we really do try to measure those visitors so that we can not just talk about impressions, but actual confirmed book business. And even with that, knowing that we're not measuring every single visitor that uses our services or looks at our website, only those that we can verify, the return on investment is still very strong.
Let me just ask a question.
Yes.
Back to that slide. So you're waiting for the 37,000 is just a placeholder? I mean, that was...
It's what we've gotten so far. This is from the other campaign. We do a campaign also in the winter, but after it's completed and it's run its course, then we need to have the third party go and measure and determine how many incremental room nights actually were measured out of that. But it takes a couple months to do that, and that won't be in until the middle of August.
The prior year was a significant year.
It was. It was. It was a great campaign.
Are you going to beat that number?
That's what our hope is. We'll see how it all comes together. I hate to tell you this, but the way we kind of do it is through, there's a little bit of Big Brother going on here. When you go on websites, we kind of follow where you go, and we can know whether or not you've looked at our campaign, you've read it, and then gone on to a website.
Do you ask permission for people to use the cookies?
Yes, they know about it. Right. They know about it. They probably don't know how far we follow it, but it's kind of standard in our business to be able to do this now. Even Amazon knows this. This is unfortunately why you keep seeing ads. When you look on a Nordstrom, that dress will follow you to all your other sites for that reason.
That only 828% return on investment is less than on the T-bid, but that number may change.
It is because, but then again, the T-bid is so easy to measure. We go after a client, we book it, they sign a contract, we know those numbers, we know how much their rate is, we know how many people are coming. It's very clean. This is a little bit more challenging because obviously we have to make some certain assumptions. If people make a reservation, we have to determine, is it a couple, is it a family of four? How much money are they going to be spending? Are they just going to go out to the beach, or are they going to do a whole array of different activities? So there's a methodology here involved in it. So we tend to err on the side of being a little bit conservative. So if you put both the last 5 years of the TOT and the T-bid, which we call the Great Public-Private Partnership of Newport Beach, you can see that over 844,000 room nights were generated. The total economic impact, this is everything that we've been able to generate, over $500 million. And if you combine both of the budgets, you can see that the overall return on investment is very strong. We report these numbers out to our board every single month, by the way. And on the T-bid side, our general managers get monthly reports on performance so they can know exactly what we're doing on their behalf and what bookings we have generated for them as well. So it's very quantifiable, very transparent, and
Well, how do you get
they
the
know
500? How do you know the total economic? What's the methodology on the total economic impact?
So there is our national association is called Destinations International. They have hired a company called Tourism Economics to develop a methodology, and this methodology is customized for each individual city. So you can, they put in, for example, the various taxes for Newport Beach, average daily rates and such. So whenever we bring in, say, a group on the T-bid, we will plug those numbers in and it will do the calculations for us and be able to calculate overall economic impact. Because obviously, you know, it's not just the hotels that benefit. Fashion Island will tell you they are very dependent on leisure guests. Even Fletcher Jones will tell you that visitors come and they take a Mercedes-Benz home as a souvenir. It's a very nice souvenir, but they do, and that leaves a very positive economic impact. And people do buy a lot of things when they're here. They eat a lot. We just had the U.S. Travel Board of Directors meeting here. This is all the top people in the U.S. tourism industry. We're meeting here for their board meeting last week. They did surf lessons, they did kayaking, they did canoeing, they did Duffy boats, they did surf lessons, they did all kinds of activities. That wouldn't have happened had that group not come to town. So that's an overall economic impact that we like to measure. So all of that really counts for what we've seen in 10-year growth of TOT. And I know that you know these numbers much better than I do even. In terms of watching how our TOT has grown. And everything that I've shown has helped contribute to that. And you'll see that we have seen some pretty significant growth. And in the next year, our goal is to try to get you over the $40 million mark on TOT growth. We're your partner, and obviously we play a pretty significant role in helping make that happen. But when you bring these groups in, that's what happens. And the city's a major beneficiary as a result. So here's kind of on the TOT, this is sort of our roll-up budget of where we're going in the next year. Again, you have it in your addendum, and you have our budgets. But this is a little bit of how we spend the money. We have a marketing committee that is comprised of all the chief marketing leaders in the community and also civic leaders. Nancy Gardner, for example, is a part of this. And they look at our program of work, they vet it. They challenge us, are we spending the money in the right things? Are we deployed properly? And then after that, we present it to our executive committee and then the full board of directors for approval. So all of these have been vetted by our board and the volunteer leadership to make sure that we're spending the money in the ways that are going to be most important. But we are very much a people-driven business. Just like it takes firemen to fight fires, it takes people to make marketing happen. Having a digital campaign, you have to have people who know how to do it. You have to have PR people that know how to work with the media. So we are very much a people-driven business. But this gives you a little bit of an overview of how we're going to be spending the money in the next year.
Let me just ask go back to that, please. Okay, so just for public edification, the top line, the budget revenue, why don't you explain where that comes from?
So what we do is, this is about a 2%. We actually do our own forecasting based on our conversations with the hotel. We also talk with Dan M about this. And our number is really based on what the hotels have said, both in terms of how much business they think they have on the books, how much business we think we're going to be able to get, what the market conditions are. This is essentially flat. We put about a 2% growth in there. There are some headwinds that we're seeing in the economy that we're a little bit cautious about. So we have always taken a very conservative approach because it's a sin to overspend. So we'd rather underspend, but we also don't want to have a lot of money left over because we want money to go in and we want money to go out so that it's marketing the city for the
why do you say
best
it's,
source.
well, I wanted to clarify a little bit more. Why do you say it's flat? I'm looking at your numbers. The total operating revenue in 19 was 5 million that came in, and now you're projecting 5.4.
That's 2% over actual. So what we budget is based on what was actually collected, because of course it's 18% of whatever comes in.
So that's what I really want you to explain, just for people who are trying to understand where you get your $5.4 million approximately, is where it's the 18% of the TOT that is collected.
Correct.
So the city retains 82%, and it gets transferred over to Visit Newport Beach. And this year, it's going to total $5.4 million approximately.
Yes.
That's a lot of marketing money. In addition to that, then you have your TOT, which is another some million.
4.4.
4.4. So you have a total marketing budget of about $10 million.
Yes.
That's a lot of money.
It is. But remember, you have to understand the conditions that we market under. LA has a marketing budget of over $65 million. You have Anaheim that has a marketing budget of over $20 million. Now, granted, they have convention centers, but it is almost like an arms race out there in terms of trying to maintain any market presence. Plus, we're a luxury destination, which also has certain costs associated with it, and we're an international destination, which also has costs associated with it. If you look at where we stand compared to some of the other cities that we compete against, whether it is San Diego, Palm Springs, Santa Barbara, Los Angeles, San Francisco, which has a budget of over $50 million. Yes, our budget seems like a lot, but it's a very competitive budget, and it is, again, half of that is coming from the private sector here in town. $4.4 million is coming by voluntary assessment of the hotels. So the city is actually getting a $4.4 million budget, getting all the benefit from TOT without any having to contribute to that side of our budget.
Mayor Pro Tem has a question.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. So on this one, there's TOT personnel, and then there's personnel and benefits, and it's a little over 2.5 million. And
Yes.
then on the budget that we had been provided in our packet, that was referenced as Newport Beach and Company fees. I was curious if you could break that down a little bit for us.
So it really goes to the way we're set up. So Newport Beach and Company is the umbrella organization that markets for tourism. It has NBTV. It has the Restaurant Association. It has two neighborhoods, Balboa Village, Balboa Island, the Boat Parade. So we're talking about 5 different distinct business units. And so it is the umbrella organization. So all of our marketing team is paid by Newport Beach and Company. So those personnel costs, we can pay them out of Visit Newport Beach. We push them up into Newport Beach and Company because that supports everyone. Our marketing team supports all those business units. It's not just tourism. Now, granted, tourism is probably 80%, 85% of what we do. But we also service these other entities too, which is part of why we're set up the way that we are. So personnel benefits, Newport Beach and Company, it's essentially the same because Newport Beach and Company is really just the administrative arm for everything else that we do, if that makes any sense. Am I clear?
Yeah, it does. And I think Debbie had said that the Newport Beach and Company budget is provided to the executive committee, which includes a representative from us. I'm assuming then that's a public record that we would have access to? Aaron?
Yeah, I'd have to think about that. I'm not sure if it is or not. I have to think about that.
What you mean, like?
Well, I mean, I think it's a decent question for folks to ask about $2.5 million of TOT, where it's going, and so I'm trying to make sure that as I'm hearing this, one of the oversight purposes we have having a representative from the city, and then also multiple representatives from the city actually employed by the city on the board. If they're provided documents as representatives of the city, I would assume that would make it a public record. So I'm trying to make sure that, when folks are asking about the oversight functions of this, that they would have access to that sort of information.
Yeah, I'm not sure they're actually. I guess that's where the question comes in. I don't know enough about it to know whether we're actually provided with a copy or they just review one. So that's going to require a little digging into to get back to you with a firm answer on that.
Oh, what happens?
Well, Doug Wood is your representative, and any questions you have, he attends all of he's a very engaged board member. He attends all the meetings. So he is your person. You can ask him any questions. He gets our monthly financials. I'm sure he's more than happy to share any of that with you. And Dan M., of course, is on our board, and he's on our audit committee as well. So...
Sorry, so he gets the financials for Visit Newport Beach or Newport Beach and
He
Company?
gets them for both.
Oh, he does. So, I
does.
mean, if he's receiving those, then, okay, all right. It might be helpful to have access to those. Thanks.
Let me just clarify. You were asking about this 2.5 million?
I was.
Right. And that, I was going to ask the same question. It's a lot of general fund money that's been transferred, and we don't know exactly how it's been utilized. So we'll follow up on our side.
Well, and know that this, again, is the way we've been set up is the way that if you want to really understand if we're spending the money correctly, ask a hotelier. They don't want this money wasted. They want it to be used in the most productive ways that are going to generate room nights. And that's why every major hotelier sits on our board of directors. That's why Sam El Raba is on our executive committee, why Debbie chairs the executive committee, is that we want to have hotels who understand our business, are well-versed in it, have an expertise in it, and can know whether or not we are being effective with all of our resources and all of our employees.
No, I don't, and I'm not trying to be challenging more than just looking, understanding the numbers.
Sure.
But my question is, what is it that Newport Beach and Company does with the 2.5 that you wouldn't do with Visit Newport Beach? Why does that have to be transferred over?
Because the way it was set up and what was recommended to us by the accounting or the auditing companies that set it up is that because the marketing team isn't just working on Visit Newport Beach, they're also helping your neighborhoods. They're helping the restaurant association. It's outside the confines of the contract of Visit Newport Beach. So all of these other entities do contribute, but
To the corporate entity that goes to those individual businesses, divisions.
Correct.
Okay. Okay,
Correct.
I see it. Okay, go ahead.
I would just say one quick thing. I agree that if we want to look to make sure that this money is being well spent, we should be asking stakeholders. 100% agree. But our responsibility up here is the ultimate responsibility of where the money is being spent.
Absolutely.
Because this is taxpayer money. And so I want to make sure that when we're talking about this and we're asking for the information that, to your point, we should be looking at that to make sure it's being well spent, but we ultimately have the responsibility to make sure that we know where that money is being spent so we are accountable to residents. So that's why we're
Completely
asking.
understand.
Okay.
Absolutely. You're doing your job. I completely respect that. I just want you to know that the oversight is really being handled by the people who know this inside and out. And they have, because they're the ones providing TOT, they have a super big vested interest in making sure they get a return on it as well. Any other questions I can answer for you? We'll keep going.
Okay.
A couple programs that I just want to emphasize that we're working on this year. We are investing in artificial intelligence, just like a lot of companies are, where you can actually have a digital concierge be able to help you during your visit here in Newport Beach. So that person could give you restaurant recommendations if you're in the peninsula and somebody says, hey, what's a great place to eat nearby? What's a great Italian restaurant? All of that can be handled now digitally. We, of course, have human beings, and we still believe in those at Fashion Island. But we also think that artificial intelligence has some really great cool applications, and the Ask Marina is continuing to get smarter and smarter as we continue to invest in her, and we think that's going to be the future in helping provide that really quality visitor experience. Wanted to also give you a little peek at our trade show booth, because this is how we depict Newport Beach to the world, and you'll see that we have an electric boat, Councilman Duffield, that we use. It was sort of a mock-up, and it actually has turned out to be one of the more popular attractions when we bring it on a trade show floor. We actually sit and meet with clients on it. We have a digital background and actually gives you a virtual tour through Newport Harbor, which of course is our crown jewel. And this trade show booth just recently won a Telly Award, which is the equivalent of a Oscar for video production. It's not just in tourism, it's for anything. So we're very pleased with what we've been able to kind of achieve with that. As I mentioned earlier, we are a community marketing agency. We are continuing to work with the Chamber on the Christmas Boat Parade. Albert Pujols, of course, was our Grand Marshal last year. We have a new Grand Marshal, which we'll be announcing shortly, who's a very prominent person I think you'll be excited about. And the boat parade continues to elevate in terms of prominence. We also now have been able to do a half-hour wrap-up of the boat parade on the first night, and Cox has agreed to air out on all of their Cox stations nationally on the boat parade, which they run numerous times. So the boat parade really is become a wonderful national event. We, of course, continue to do our work for Balboa Village and Balboa Island and working with those merchant associations and working with them to help drive business into that area. And then, of course, the Restaurant Association, Dine Newport Beach. That now has really blossomed. We've been able to get 93% of all of the bid collections submitted, which about 2 years ago it was below 70%, I believe. We've been able to really make Restaurant Week kind of a key event, and we also have a partnership with Open Table, and we've been able to track over 6,600 reservations that came out of Restaurant Week particularly. So the Restaurant Association, and I know you're revisiting all of the bids out there, but I know the Restaurant Association and its board has so improved its governance, their engagement. They have a wonderful strategic plan, a marketing plan. Melissa Jacoby, who is there in the photo, is a wonderful leader of that program on our team. Of course, Newport Beach TV, and it's really our video unit. Some people would be surprised to know that we've created over 285 videos and shows in the last year. 141 of them had to do with our efforts here in the public sector, covering council meetings, planning, commissions, and such. But we've also created Weekly Bites, which is a restaurant show, culinary journeys, and other special video projects for the community that we've been able to use and air if the city wants on Newport Beach TV, and also for other marketing channels, including the neighborhoods and the Restaurant Association and even the boat parade.
You know, on that, when we were looking at the contract for the video production several months ago, we talked about doing new and different things. Again, marketing, reaching, educating our residents. So has anything progressed in that area?
Well, Ed Olin in the back there has been working, I know, very closely with city staff, and then Melissa Jacoby now is heading up our video effort. And I continue to check in and ask, are we doing exactly what you need? We've been doing a lot of PSA work. That's really what the city needed. And of course, we've been editing down some of these shows like Speak Up Newport for social media purposes. So that's my understanding is that things seem to be working pretty well, unless I'm missing something. But I've gotten great reports that we seem to be on a track, and the city seems to be pleased.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you. So let me give you also a little quick snapshot of some of the work. And of course, you saw Newport Beach TV at work this weekend with the new fire station and library out there doing a show, but we've also done quite a few others.
You know, one thing I remember that I wanted to see, and maybe it's still being worked on, is unless you are a Cox customer, you can't see any of these videos. So I don't see them except unless I go to the city website, which brings me to my point. One of the things we talked about with the video is how to put video more into the city's website in a lively and dynamic, interesting way. So I hope to continue to see that. I know there have been some structural improvements, and maybe the structure of the website is a limiting factor, but instead of having everything, and as far as I know, it's still listed on NBTV and all the chronology of the events, you literally click on one or the other. I'd like to see them integrated more into the homepage and the first couple pages of the website. So I hope that's to come.
We're continuing to work with Mary Losi on that, and I know that she's been taking a lot of the videos and shortening them down for social media purposes, because as you know, that is a key communication channel as well. So we are doing that.
Okay, good.
Thank you.
All right. Oh, excuse me, we have some questions lined up here. Ms. Brenner.
Yes.
Gary, my question is, I see it on Spectrum TV. Am I seeing the same thing there that I would see if I was watching it on the computer?
It should be, yes. It should be. The problem with the cable channels, of course, is it's analog, not digital, so the quality is
not
just
good.
awful.
Yes.
And we've been trying, I know the city's been trying for some time to try to change that, and we have not received a real positive response. We've wanted to do that. We've also wanted to update some of the hardware here too, so that we can get better camera work as well. And I know that's still under discussion, because I know there is a budget for just hardware. But yes, it is a problem, and so.
Mr. Avery has a question.
Yes, sir.
Oh, I don't have a question. I have a compliment. I think I can't imagine a better group of people, leading this effort to represent the city and fill the hotels and get the TOT tax up. But more than anything, just representing the city so well and sharing it with all the visitors. I just think it's just terrific. My only comment would be, to the Mayor Pro Tem's point, I think there's, and I understand it. Obviously, you've outlined it very well. We've got to be able to compete, but I think we should have a little more transparency with the budget, and for everybody to see and be able to drill down as far as possible, just to see how it's spent and where the money's going, and I think that would be great. So that's my only recommendation. Thank you.
And we're certainly always open to discussions on that. The other thing that we always have as well is we have an annual audit, and we also have a compliance component as part of that audit, which determines whether or not what we're spending complies with the terms of the agreement and what our mission is to accomplish for you. So we're about to start that process, as we are every August. And when we go through this process, as I mentioned, we have a marketing committee, we have the executive committee with your representative there, Dan M sees the budget, so it is very much open within the organizational structure, and if anyone would like a briefing before we do that, we're more than happy to come and talk with you about it. There are no secrets here.
Do you still have more slides?
Just a couple more, and I'll be right off.
All right.
I wanted to leave you with a really fun thing, which I know many of you are aware of, and that is the 5th annual UK program that we do in London every year. Greg Schwank at the Film Festival and I kind of dreamed up this idea over tacos one day. Let's go crash the BAFTA Awards, which are the British Oscars, because we knew we could position Newport Beach in a fresh, dynamic, and elegant way to associate with Hollywood, and it has now become the event that kicks off the BAFTAs. The president of the BAFTAs actually comes to the event, but we don't just do that. We do events with British travel agents. We do a full day of radio interviews. We have a big PR component to it as well. Pelican Hill sent their top chef. We did a takeover a restaurant and hosted a bunch of travel writers. So we really maximize that opportunity. And we are now not only doing the event in London, but Variety, which is the Bible of the entertainment industry and a wonderful brand partner with us, has now said, we love the event in London, and can we partner with you on the Variety 10 Actors to Watch? We started that last November. So the beginning of the Oscars starts here in Newport Beach with Variety. November 3rd, they give an award show. It's at Pelican Hill. They're a major sponsor of it. And so that'll be happening. Our event in London will be on January 30th. And then we also host 10 Cinematographers to Watch, which is held during the film festival. We're the only destination in the world that hosts 3 of these major Hollywood events. And that gives us a lot of prestige and a lot of glamour, and of course a lot of coverage in Variety magazine, as well as a lot of other publications as well. And I'll leave you with sort of a wrap-up of what we've been doing there. And this event in London was particularly funny. If you're a Downton Abbey fan, we honored the creator of Downton Abbey as well as all the cast members. They came to the event and they were gushing about Newport Beach because we had a digital screen showing beautiful beauty shots, and it was about 30 degrees outside. So our message was very well received. Again, thank you very much for all your support, all your counsel. It is such an honor, and it's something that we take very seriously. We love this city. And one other piece of good news is that the Los Angeles Rams are right now in the process of checking in here to Newport Beach for the next 6 weeks. We are going to be their home for spring training. I don't think that has been made public yet. We've been kind of quiet about it because of security concerns. But the Rams are here. They're going to be starting their camp at USRowing. But over 4,000 room nights will be generated by the Rams during their stay, with over $1 million in food and beverage. So that is a piece of business that we work to help secure as well for the city. But with that, I'll be happy to open it up to any other questions you may have.
Mr. Duffield, do you have a question?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. So, Gary, you are, no question, the Energizer Bunny of this category. And you guys have done a great job, obviously, over the years. So I wanted to ask you a question that is going to raise your voice. I know you're going to, and your smile will go away. But would you just help me with this?
Sure.
So, you're all your numbers go back 10 years. But 11 and 12 years ago, we were in a recession.
Yes.
Was all of this started? Did the hotels come to the city and say, hey, we need to do something to help us through the recession part of it? Did that have anything to do with this, the start of this whole thing?
And that question doesn't upset me at all, Councilman. Actually, the way the T-bid was created was in the middle of the recession. We had done a strategic plan, and the organization looked at how we're set up and the funding that we received, which is at the time was only the 18% TOT. And the hospitality industry said, we need to do more. We need to come out of the recession stronger. We need to book group business. But we know that we're not going to do it by sticking our hand out and asking the city for more. We, as the industry, are going to help solve the problem ourselves. And out of that was created, in the depths of the recession in 2009, the T-bid. And they started assessing themselves 2% to put towards additional marketing. So they decided that this was a private sector driven solution, and they gladly did it. And that is really how we got here today.
Okay. So now this question you won't like. So now that our economy is on fire, and you keep asking for more money, does that that's the one part of this equation that I would think as the economy gets better, we would need less of your services, and instead the economy's best it's ever been, pretty much in my lifetime, and you need more and more money. So if it started because of the recession and now we're out of it, I just want to tell my colleagues that it just bugs me a little bit, and that's just me, but I'm just one. That's how I feel, and you're a great guy, and I know this is everything you do, so it's hard for us to criticize you at all. But you got to know that's what goes through my head. I mean,
what you're saying, and to put it another way, is the 18% of a small base was not very much money when it first started in 2008, 9, or 10, but 18% of $35 million is a lot of money.
Well, and I guess our response would be that we're not asking for more money. All we're saying is that the existing formula of 18% and the 3% is enough to sustain us. If we do our jobs properly, and you would think that if a business is doing what they're intending to do and generating real results, there's going to be more money generated as a result. I mean, if it was the other way, I would say we're probably not doing our job, that we're not bringing more money in, but we are. But so is the city, because remember that 18%, you're still keeping 82% of that. So you're keeping the additional monies that's being generated, and on the group side, you're keeping all of that money with no additional money being spent because the private industry is paying for that. But to the point of our budget, understand that, yes, our budget has grown because we've done our job, but so have other destinations. If we don't stay competitive, and Debbie kind of highlighted this, she's worked in a lot of cities. Our hotels know what is going on in the other communities. If we're not doing our job and staying competitive, then we're going to lose market share. We're going to see the TOT reverse. And I don't want to sound alarmist when I say that, but that is the case, because remember, there's a lot of money being spent against us to try to capture the same business that we are. Huntington Beach just took their TOT up, or their T-bid up another percentage point because they want to compete more against us. Other cities are gunning for us all the time. So we need as many resources as we can to do it right. But remember, when we gain, you're gaining too. So that's why your TOT has gone up.
Ms. Brenner has a question.
I do have a question. It's a little bit off base, but are you at all concerned about what our homeless population is doing to what is essentially the golden goose?
Yes, I am. I see the homeless outside as you leave Fashion Island. I see them at key intersections where our visitors are and our residents are. I drove actually by the bus station on Saturday to see how many homeless people were camping out there. It is a major societal problem, and I think it should break all of our hearts, but it is also a business problem. One that we as a country and we as a county and we as a city need to be able to get our arms around. There are no easy solutions, but when you're selling yourself as a luxury aspirational destination, a taste of the perfect life, as we like to call it, it is a little bit of a black eye for us, no question.
I wonder how San Francisco is managing through that. More along that same vein, what is your biggest challenge in marketing Newport Beach?
Well, one that we can't do anything about, but we are Newport Beach, but we don't have any hotels on the beach. And we have a lot of people who ask for that, and that's one of the big things that makes Huntington Beach a little bit more successful in some areas than we are. The other thing that we are working on, and this is why it's important for us to be able to attack the Los Angeles market, is that I believe that one of the things that makes destinations successful is top-of-mind awareness. And I would like to think that people in Westwood or San Fernando Valley, when asked, well, let's go to the beach this weekend and make it a long weekend, where should we go? They would immediately say Newport Beach. And I think we made a lot of headway, but I still think they say Santa Barbara or San Diego before they say us. And that's one of the things we have got to change that paradigm. Part of it is that, believe it or not, we're a relatively new destination in terms of really marketing it. You know, we used to have just the Four Seasons Hotel. The Marriott wasn't, 15 years ago wasn't nearly as nice as it is today. The Hyatt wasn't as nice as it is today. We didn't have Lido House. We didn't have Pelican Hill. So we are still kind of emerging as a relatively new destination. I know that sounds crazy for a city that's been around since 1906, but from a top-of-mind Los Angeles awareness, we still are working on that, and we're still trying to make that happen. And LA is not a cheap market to work on.
Wasn't in your materials. What is the vacancy rate or the unused capacity rate?
We're getting close to about 80% occupancy, and that's why you're seeing occupancy levels kind of flattening out. Whenever you get to 80%, that is getting pretty close to, peak capacity. You could get a little higher than that, but that's why when you saw that vortex, occupancy flattening out, but people are charging more per room, from a hotel standpoint, they like that because they're getting more per room and they're not getting the wear and tear on their rooms as much. But we are kind of beginning to see a little bit of a leveling off. And we just had an economist report for the U.S. Travel Association, and we are seeing headwinds. There is a slowdown that we're starting to see nationally in terms of occupancy, slowdown on the international, as I said. We're still relatively healthy, but they definitely said there's some clouds out there that we need to be aware of. And there's a debate whether it's going to be a slowdown or a recession in 2020. No one is clear on that, but we definitely need to be very careful, and we need to be nimble enough to know that if there is a slowdown, we have to change directions. We went and marketed in our own backyard during the recession. That's what got us through that recession, because we focus on staycations. Even people in the Inland Empire or the inland part of Orange County would come down here instead of going to Hawaii because they didn't have the money. So if that happens, we need to be prepared to move quickly and reallocate the resources. So that's why we monitor the economy so carefully.
Okay, Kevin, Mr. Muldoon.
Mr. Sherwin, I'm worried about how much time you're spending in England. Would you please spell honor for me?
Well, we're trying to be respectful of their culture, as you know. So we would spell it one way here and another way over there. We'd throw the U in, yes.
I appreciate that, and great job. Have a motion to move staff.
Do we have a second? Go out to the public. Have we gone to the public yet? No. Thank you, Gary. Appreciate it. Thank you, members of your team and your board of directors. Any public comments?
Mayor Dixon, members of the council, my name is Jim Mosher. To follow up on Councilman Duffield's comment, we heard about the T-bid being born out of a 2008 recession. I notice in the agenda packet, the executive summary you have towards the start of it is mentioning that Newport Beach is finishing a record-breaking anniversary year, 30 years. What happened 30 years ago was another recession, which actually has to do with the 18% TOT that you're talking about. And I don't know what the anniversary has to do with Newport Beach and Company, but the city of Newport Beach, in this city, there was something called a Conference and Visitors Bureau that operated like a chamber of commerce with voluntary contributions. And during that recession, their contributions to their marketing operation fell off, and they came to a council 30 years ago asking, hey, could the government collect the dues money into their Conference and Visitors Bureau for them? That, I believe, is where the 18% TOT contribution put the government getting it from the visitors rather than the hotels having to. I think that is where that part started, which is separate from the T-bid. And like you, I'd kind of wonder why they're needing it now, since they've invented this machine that has 1,000% return on investment. Anybody who has a machine, you can put in $1 and you get 10 out. You don't have to put in a lot of dollars until you have more than there are stars in the universe. So one wonders why they still need the government helping to collect the money. I'm similarly a little skeptical about the number on the front page here, telling me and the other people in Newport Beach that if the hotels went away, each of us, or actually each household, would have to pay $1,139 per year in taxes to keep our roads paved. I'm kind of skeptical of that, and I have no idea where the number came from. We said it came from an economist. I'm curious how they knew it was 1,139 and not 1,138 or 37. But there's no corroboration of where the number came from. As to the T-bid, I remain mystified why a supposedly nonprofit organization is doing what seems to be exactly what the for-profit marketing people working for the hotels do, which is to try to book room nights. Seems a little odd to me. And the budget for the T-bid, which is at the end of your packet, comes in two forms. One is kind of a summary and then a detailed. I could not correlate the two of them at all. I don't know if you had any more success with that than I did. And the budget that has to do with the other part of it has a lot of strange items in it. Laura Curran pointed out a couple of those, and I would hope that you would look at those and wonder what they are. Large amounts of changes, but my time is running out. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Any more public comments? Please come forward. Seeing none, we have a motion by Mr. Muldoon. Who was the second?
I was.
Mr. Avery. All right, let's vote.
The motion carries unanimously, 7-0.
Madam Clerk.
Motion to reconsider the vote on any action taken by the City Council at either this meeting or the previous meeting may be made only by one of the council members who voted with the prevailing side.
Is there a motion for reconsideration? Seeing none, we are adjourned. Have a good evening. Thank you.